Hey, everybody.
Hey, everyone.
Hi.
We have a new face, a new voice if you're not watching the video. A very special guest co-host for this episode, Liz. Welcome.
Thank you.
Technically not your first appearance on the show since you did present at the awards. And I think everybody in the comments agreed you won Best Dressed at the awards. So that was good.
Yeah. Kind of made both of us feel like schmucks that we didn't even think about having to dress up for a award ceremony and then on the fly having to put something together.
Yeah, all the tux rental places were closed.
I took it very seriously.
If people have listened to our appearance on the Beat Critics, they should know you from that. Mm-hmm. And since then, you have moved on to found Liz and a Movie, which is a very cool project. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so it's more of, we kind of moved away from doing the podcast just because my co-host had some life stuff and she's like, I don't have time. So I was like, no worries. And I started doing my own thing and I've got like a written blog and I'm still doing my movie facts. So if you like those.
Yeah, I'm super excited that you said you wanted to do this one because it's the one that I was like, the one that I wrote down, we want to do this episode, and I really hope that Liz can be involved, especially because, you always seem like a good researcher because you're always putting out, like, fun movie facts and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. And I was like, but I don't want to just give her this one and say, it's this one or you're never coming on the show. So I was like, maybe I'll offer some other options as well.
I'm big into conspiracies, so this is right up my alley.
Good. We want to have you on this episode because we're talking about kind of movie facts, movie fan theories that can completely change your perspective of a movie, or either make a movie you like, make you not like it, or the opposite, hopefully. There's a couple for me that I'm like, I don't really care for this movie, but the more I go down this rabbit trail, I kind of get a little more interested in it.
Uh-huh. I came across some very interesting things on the internet, I will say.
Oh, man. The freaking internet and this fan theory thing. I was like, good God, people. Good God.
Yeah, it's very interesting. People are pretty interesting out there in the world.
Very creative.
Yeah. But before we get to that, let's go through the usual housekeeping stuff.
Yeah.
First off, in addition to being our biggest, it's not really our biggest episode because we didn't put the most work ever into it, but it is a big deal that we have our very first guest ever. So I'm not downplaying it either. I'm just saying it's in the middle. But we do also have a major announcement. That we teased last episode. We are branching out and expanding the show. We've been doing this for 4 years now and over 130 episodes and like 7,000 streams right about there.
Oh
and yeah, so we thought this is a good foundation and track record of consistency and all that stuff, and have decided to create the official Movie Boners fan club that you can join. And when you join, you get additional content. And there'll be a link in the description for this episode and all future episodes. But we're going to create brand new episode, like kinds of episodes that we've never done before. Very different and very fun. And then we have a whole new merch store, separate, super secret, fan club only, members only merch store.
Exclusive.
Yeah, it is. That has deep discounts and new designs.
It's true.
This is one of ours. This is it's a pirate flag, but it's a VHS tape at the same time.
That.
So it's like pirating movies off of the TV, which we obviously did a lot and might still do.
It's what you had to do that back then. You had to.
Yeah. And yeah, so there'll be a lot of new and exclusive stuff there. Giveaways, all kinds of stuff that we want to do. And we just want, if you want to support the show, want to make it better, want to make it, and just get extra stuff because you're all caught up and looking for more, that's kind of the place to do it. So we're going to be expanding that out. And we've already started a backlog of episodes, so you can just start binging right away.
How exciting.
Yeah, we're pretty excited about it. It's very new ventures.
Yeah.
And speaking of new ventures, if you want extra content beyond that, Dustin has released the first, well, at the time of recording, the first part. By the time this comes out, you'll be about halfway through.
Yeah, it should be parts 3 and 4 maybe might be out. Yeah.
Yeah. So you wrote a book.
I did.
And you've been working on it for a very long time. I don't know how long ago you started it, but it was a very long time ago. And then decided to make free YouTube videos that basically reading the whole thing. And so people can basically access your book for free, which is cool, I think.
Yeah.
And because it's a helpful topic that people should get value out of.
The primary thing was, so it's a very big departure from this. Very polar opposite. It's not exactly fun, I would say, but it's important. 2022 decided to, not really decided to, just started writing, and a lot of suppressed shit came out. So it's all mental health related. It's all my journey and trying to find healing in mental health, and felt it was important to share it. So yep, it's on YouTube. It's I'm Here Story. You'll find me, and by the time this episode comes out, parts 3 and maybe 4 will be out. So it's there for community to, if someone hears the story, can relate to some of it, to make better decisions than I did. So that's the purpose, that's the point, and the goal. So
cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I already put links to it in our Instagram, and it's one of the friends of the show links at the bottom of our YouTube page. And then I'll put a link in the episode description for this episode as well. So go find that because it's very cool.
Yeah.
You know what else is very cool? The movie draft.
Damn it.
Yes, I know you're aware of the movie draft, Liz. It's a thing that we do, and Dustin is currently the reigning champion. He does have the belt on his wall, but
fucking Dune 2 just had to.
He's currently losing by a good amount in the box office. Yeah,
don't make it worse, Liz. What are you doing? Don't.
Sorry.
He's
down about $750 million in the box office. But you're only, was that 14 hundredths of a point behind in the IMDb rating. And IMDb rating's catching up pretty quick. And the box office, even though you're behind, you are catching up rather quickly. Very steep curve there. But I think that's to be expected when you had 3 different movies come out in the same week, basically.
Yeah, the 3 top box office films of May came out, and I had them.
Yeah, so. You just decided May is the month you're going to put all your chips on, and the whole month you get all of the box office revenue for May.
Yeah.
Particularly because The Fall Guy, they kind of gave up on that movie. It feels like 2 weeks after the theater, they released it to streaming.
Yeah.
See, they should have given up on Civil War and embraced The Fall Guy, because it was so much better than Civil War. So,
yeah, you've seen Fall Guy, Liz?
Yes, I saw it actually like 2 months before it came out.
Oh, that's
at,
right.
The early screening.
I was super jealous of that.
Yeah, so was I.
It was very cool. It's hard to not talk about it. I was like, it's so good. I want to tell everyone.
So good. Fall Guy was like, this is why we go to the movies. It's so much fun. It's got everything you need. And then no one went and saw it.
Yeah, it feels like everybody has given it. They've said it's good. All the word of mouth has been positive, but for some reason, people just aren't going. And same for King of the Planet of the Apes, same for Furiosa. Furiosa, everybody has said, oh, it's great, but not really everybody's going to that either.
I'm surprised by that one, because there was so much conversation around it ahead of time.
Yeah, I think that's true for sure.
Especially coming off the heels of Fury Road, like, I expected Furiosa just to be a juggernaut, and then it had the lowest Memorial Day weekend opening ever, or something like that.
In what decades or something. Yeah,
I wonder if everyone's burned out from fantasy after Dune 2 came out.
See,
probably.
Fucking Dune 2, right?
I saw a thing today that Denis Villeneuve is even like, I'm disappointed that Dune 2 is still number 1. Like, the summer box office has not been what it normally is.
Yeah.
No, there's not a lot coming out this summer.
No.
I mean,
Deadpool 3
that's going to be huge. I already
should be
know,
big.
like, Jake, I'm sorry. That one might put me over on the box office on you, dude.
And
Yeah,
they've got a cool popcorn bucket.
They have that popcorn bucket, and
I
God
know.
damn it.
So Dustin wanted to get a Dune 2 bucket
I
and
did.
couldn't. I know Liz has one, and very, very prominently displayed.
Yep.
Are you going to get a Wolverine popcorn bucket to go with it?
If I can, yeah, I'm gonna get one.
Oh, yeah.
It's
That-
just too
I'm like,
funny.
this
It's
is going to
too
be a
funny.
mission for me this time. Like,
Yeah.
I will kick theater doors in at AMC and be like, fucking give me this bucket. I don't
You
care.
gotta go
if
to an
it's 20
obscure one, like out in the country that nobody goes to.
Mhm.
Give me that goddamn bucket. It's so
Yeah.
inappropriate, but
Yeah, that promo with the butter and everything was quite over the top, I
oh
thought.
my god, it was so
Hilarious.
amazing.
Hilarious. So perfect.
But yeah, nothing really huge after that coming out, I guess.
Mhm.
People, Joker might be, because original Joker was, but I think that
Man.
it's so unnecessary of a sequel that it won't have the same numbers as the first one.
And it's
People
I think,
do love Lady Gaga though.
That's
True.
true.
but
Bonus
it is a
Gaga.
musical, and that has kind of made people feel very like, what are
Odd.
you doing here?
Yeah.
Mhm.
I'm sticking with my theory, on point with the episode. My theory is that all the musical parts are going to be like in their heads as
Yeah.
they're having their mental
Oh.
breakdowns. I'm assuming that's what
I
it's
like
going to
that.
be. Right?
I mean, yeah, if they're crazy people and they're in an asylum, pretty much everything will probably be in their heads, I imagine.
We can only hope.
Yeah. I did notice, though, I mean, everybody expects Furiosa to be bigger, but I did notice Fury Road was not as big as I assumed that it was. It only made $380 million at the box office.
Oh, I feel
So
like
I don't
it
know
was
if
way
it-
bigger than that too.
I don't know if it got more popular since then, or if it's just...
Or you and I just love it that much that we.
Yeah, that's probably what it was.
You put blinders on.
It's just like, nope,
Can't
nope.
see the
Everyone
haters.
else is wrong for not seeing it. This movie is the biggest movie ever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, so moving on. What new stuff have you all seen lately? Dustin, you can go first. Give Liz a chance, because I didn't really tell her what we were doing.
It's true. It's true. Because we're so organized, Liz. I'm sorry.
It's part of our charm to not be prepared.
Yeah. I actually got so caught up in like I've been kind of doing, prepping for future episodes and then working on the side project. I finally got around to seeing a couple things. I did see Furiosa,
Okay.
and it is fucking great. Like, it's so different from Fury Road, and that might be making people have a little hesitation from seeing it.
Mm-hmm.
hmm
But it is a ton of fun. And Anna Taylor-Joy, right?
Yeah.
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 Hey, I got her name right.
First try.
I know. She kills it as Furiosa. She's fantastic. And I know
can see
I had
that.
mentioned before seeing it, I was really excited to see her in a role where they didn't like pretty her up or have, that I was excited to see her get just right in the dirt. She's handling guns, and she does it great. I really hope she pursues more roles like that. I think it would just... I'm already a fan of hers, but I think if she does that, that'll really just push her right up there. Yeah, it was fantastic. And Chris Hemsworth needs to play more villains because the dude is brilliant at it. You can argue he's the most entertaining aspect of the whole movie. You really can make that argument.
Yeah. So spoilers, I saw it too, and I also really enjoyed him as, I think Dementis is his name.
Yeah.
He does a great job of you feel like he has to be a better person than Immortan Joe, but then as time goes, it kind of goes back and forth. He's like, well, he's kind of worse, but he's kind of better. So it's a more complicated character, and I definitely liked that.
Yeah, he was a blast to watch it. So Furiosa was pretty cool. And then I did see my personal most anticipated movie of the year, which I know it took you off guard, Jake, that's just the one that I was most excited for. But my daughter and I went and saw If, and
Aw.
to be expected. I cried my eyes out through the better part of that film. My daughter warned me. She had seen it with her mom and her stepdad first, and she went, "Dad, this movie's going to make you cry." And I was like, "Well, I already know that." She goes, "No, Dad, this movie's really going to make you cry."
Aww.
And like, she had already seen it, and then we're watching it, and I glanced over, and she's crying during it too. And I was like, "All right." It's just like, it's not a perfect movie. By no means did John Krasinski set out to make the perfect movie, but it is a fantastic film. And I think it's a very important film, just with the whole, like, getting back to childhood innocence and just learning how to enjoy the simpler things and the more fun aspects of life and prioritizing that over negativity and stuff. It was fantastic. I absolutely adored that film. So
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I'm glad that it lived up to expectations.
It did.
That's awesome.
It did.
All right. I watched Furious as well, like I said, and I thought it was good, although I feel like I might have had higher expectations, or like you said, it was different enough that
very different from Fury Road. Yeah.
I have small gripes with it, nothing major. Just like I didn't love the chapter layout, or they do a couple things where they're like, remember this in Fury Road, and I'm like, I don't need that in this story. But overall, I think it did a great job of the point of the movie, which is giving backstory to Furiosa. I thought that it definitely added to her character, and I want to rewatch Fury Road immediately because I imagine that it makes that movie better, which is all you can ask for a prequel. I think that's a good thing for sure.
Yeah.
And a lot of really cool stunts in it, a lot of really cool vehicles and props. And when I realized that Dementis was riding a chariot pulled by motorcycles, I was like, I'm into this movie immediately. Like, that is exactly what I want from
The physics
George Miller,
of this make no sense, but it's perfect.
I'm like trying to think about, I'm like, how does he do the acceleration? Don't worry about it. Just let it happen.
Doesn't matter.
Let it be. Just let it be.
It's cool.
And then I watched a movie called Leroy, Texas, which is a very odd and weird movie. But I think if you like Fargo, then you should check out Leroy, Texas, because it's a very similar story about a guy who kind of is feels like a loser. Nobody really respects him. His wife is cheating on him, and he gets accidentally mistaken for a hitman. And so he kind of struggles with, should I go through with it because that kind of earns me a little bit more respect, or should I, avoid it? And he also needs money, and so it kind of works out that way. And then his friend, played by Steve Zahn, is like a brand new, trying to be a private detective, and so they kind of team up, and it's a like a wannabe hitman with a wannabe private investigator, and it's pretty funny at times. Takes a little while to get going, but I really enjoyed it.
All right.
And then I watched Abigail, which you told me was good, and I definitely knew was good, but I didn't expect it to be as funny as it was.
It's hilarious, right?
It was really funny. Like, I watched it with my wife, and she's pregnant right now, and when she loves horror movies, she loves gore, but when she's pregnant, that can kind of turn her off a little bit. And so I wasn't sure, but she also likes vampires when they're brutal, like when they're 30 Days of Night kind of vampires. And so I was like, normal you will like this movie. I don't know if pregnant you will like this movie. And so we started it, and she was mostly concerned that the girl getting kidnapped, she's like, if they do anything bad to that little girl. And I was like, well,
just wait.
Like, the little girl's kind of the bad.
Yeah. I was like, they will, but I think you're going to be okay with it. And so, yeah, she was dying laughing, and she loved it as well. So,
it's so funny.
Abigail's a really, really fun time. And that's all I watched. Have you seen anything new, Liz? They don't have to be new movies. They can be old movies that you saw for the first time.
The most recent thing, like, that came out recently, I saw Challengers. I don't know if you guys have seen that yet.
No, I don't know anything about it other than
it was very different from what I thought it was going to be.
Oh.
Not like in a bad way, just like it was different from what I thought. It's nothing like the trailer.
Okay.
It's more like documentary style.
Weird.
Yeah, it's like a tennis documentary. I don't know. It was really well made. It has a cool soundtrack. Zendaya was amazing in it, as expected. Loved that. And then I watched streaming. I watched The Idea of You, which was very sweet, very cute. It's the new Anne Hathaway
Yeah.
movie.
That's the one. Okay.
It's based on a book. Yeah. I watched it on an airplane, which was fun and different.
Love airplane movies.
Oh yeah,
Yep.
and then I watched Bride Wars recently, which is like a regular for me. I watch that all the time. So.
On the Anne Hathaway train.
Yes,
Fair
I love
enough.
Anne Hathaway.
All right.
Fair enough.
All right. Nice.
Yeah.
Awesome. That's great.
Mhm.
Okay. I think that's all the stuff we have to do before we get into the meat of the episode. Yeah. So we're doing, like I said, fan theories of movies and maybe TV if we have time, because I have a couple of those too.
Oh God, I didn't do TV at all. What the fuck are you doing to me?
Well, you know, yeah. There's no script. It's like the Matrix.
Ever.
There's no spoon. Just let it happen.
It's
And it's hard to figure out when you're trying to look up fan theories because they're kind of just part of culture. It feels like that there's no way to credit whoever came up with this. It's just kind of spread around like mythology in a way. So there's I have like two that I definitely watched extensive YouTube videos on, like 40-minute YouTube videos on.
you and your rabbit holes, man.
Yeah.
Holes.
Very conspiracy. And well, one is related to The Shining, which is also conspiracy. But so there's a couple I have. But most of
on
the
that
time,
too, so we'll have a great conversation there.
yeah. And the one thing or thought I had that was kind of interesting, I thought, is that fan theories have definitely exploded since the internet. Like people share them and it spreads like a good idea or whatever. But it's also, I think, the case that fan theories have always been a thing ever since, like, paintings and books and all of that stuff. Like, if you look at a famous painting and there have always been people that are like, well, yeah, it's a picture of a cup, but what it really means is that this is an anti-communist, like all of this, that the artist was fighting against the government. And I was like,
how do you know?
Yeah. And so people, I think, have always been looking for additional meanings under the covers, past the primary narrative, and it's just a fun thing to add another layer of depth to a story, I think.
Yeah. I mean, art is subjective. We've talked about that all the time. I mean, the way you and I like dive into films, and Liz, I'm sure you can relate, where you'll connect or interpret stuff that's so far different from what everybody else is seeing or might read from it. There are also times when I was doing prepping for this where I was like, I think people are just getting kind of caught up too much on trying to fill in plot holes. Like sometimes you need to remember that movies can't be perfect. There's probably going to be a plot hole there, here and there, because the studio probably made them cut out the explanation to save time, yada, yada. But there were a few that I was like, wow, what are you doing? Like, I'm looking at Jack Dawson, like, whoever came up with this theory is just, you are reaching, my friend. But then you look at theories that are, like, connected to Toy Story, and it's great. And it actually kind of made me love, like, the story a little bit more, and I already adore that story. So fan theories they can be really fun, I found personally, and then there's some that I was just like, this is not my
too far.
Yeah, like, what are you guys doing?
Do you even know what you're doing?
Right. Yeah, I think that's kind of how we'll approach this, is bring up different fan theories, see if we've heard it, see, explain what the gist is, and then kind of decide, do we buy it, or does it make it better? Does it make it worse? Because sometimes it makes it worse. You're like, oh, this person who is the hero is actually terrible. The villain, the villain is obviously the worst person in the world, is the hero of the movie. And I'm like, I don't know about that.
Yeah, I saw that theory too, Jake, and I just laughed out loud. Like, wow, that person might need to be reevaluated if you're siding with that guy, because that's not necessarily good.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so I guess we'll just get into it.
I say, Liz, you kick us off. Like, what was maybe not your favorite one, but just like, what was one that made you just be like, oh, that one kind of like, perked that curiosity a little bit?
Okay. So this one is pertinent to a movie that's coming out later this year. A lot of people have probably heard about it. Wicked. They're saying it's part one. I don't know what that
Yes.
means, but
Okay.
it's Wizard of Oz / Wicked related, and I'm a huge Wicked fan. I've seen it multiple times live, and so I'll just tell you what it is. So the theory is that Glinda is actually the villain, which I can
Okay.
totally see. And the thought
Glinda's
is
the main one that's like dressed in
Glinda's
pink
the
and stuff.
sparkly pink.
The good one.
Yes. Yeah. Glinda the good.
Okay.
Yep. And the theory is that she knows how to get Dorothy home the whole time. But after Dorothy drops the house on the Wicked Witch of the West, Glinda sees the opportunity to have Dorothy do the dirty work so that Glinda's the only one left to rule Oz.
Oh.
So she like pins it on Dorothy and then makes her the scapegoat as she travels around, and then the other Green Witch is sending her monkeys after her instead of actually worrying about Glinda. Yeah.
All right.
I could buy that. Like, it seems like
I buy it.
Yeah, Glinda
I've
always...
never seen Wicked, and I don't know anything really about their relationships, but she does kind of seem a little bit goody two shoes, too good to be true.
I always kind of was hesitant about Glinda. I mean, okay, so this is coming from a fan. Don't freak out, but I've never been the biggest Wizard of Oz fan. It's just
That's okay.
never. Yeah, like I know it's a classic, but
stop freaking out, Liz. He told you not
Liz,
to freak
you need
out.
to calm down. God damn. But Glinda's always struck me as that kind of like she's almost too sweet and too kind. Like I don't know if I trust this lady. And I'm with Jake. I know nothing about Wicked, but every time I see the trailer and Glinda, like the young version of her, every time she talks in that trailer, I'm like, oof, you are.
Yeah.
You're like, you're giving me very Regina vibes right now.
Yes.
Like,
you guys will like Wicked. It is from the Green Witch's perspective. So you get a lot of backstory.
Okay.
Which is interesting.
Well, every villain is the hero in their own story. So I imagine even if it's not true overall, it will present that case that, oh, the Green Witches did nothing wrong.
The Green Witch was the good guy the whole time. Fuck Linda.
Yeah, well.
That's interesting. I like that one. Okay, I got one. How about for the Hunger Games? We're all familiar with the Hunger Games.
Yes. I'm intrigued.
What if the 13 districts were originally the 13 American colonies, and the story takes place in an alternate reality where Great Britain won the Revolutionary War, and they destroyed District 13 to demoralize the other 12 colonies, and then established the capital and established the president to rule over them, and then further demoralize them by having the Hunger Games all the time and stealing their children and forcing them to kill each other off. And it gets pretty dark pretty fast. It's kind of like a human sacrifice or a child sacrifice situation. And that's kind of like I like those extra layers of like history.
I was going to say, leave it to Jake to find the one that's going to connect to history.
Put it in the real world, and then also, I like the American Revolution too. I think it's interesting. So, what do you think of that?
It. I buy it.
That one's interesting to me. I would totally buy that one. I would totally buy that one.
I didn't read any of the books, but I don't know exactly like if they establish where even the districts are, or what country they're even in, or if it's just kind of generic fantasy.
Just Pan Am. It's never said to be like America or anywhere else. It's just Pan Am. I totally buy that. Yeah.
Yes.
I
could see the author of that book like doing that and being like,
well, it makes sense because like you've got President Snow, who I guess you could take as like kind of more British. He's pretty like, oh, look at me, right?
Yeah. Like he could have been wearing a wig at some point and a red coat
to do this.
But then, like when you've got, I forget her name, the lady that like takes over towards the
With
end.
the big hair.
Yeah, like the
Yeah,
president lady. Like, she's just as evil. So I could totally, and this is on brand for me, I could totally see it being that alternate universe where both sides are still totally fucked up and evil, and you couldn't trust either. So I'm all for that one, Jake. Yeah.
Okay. Nice. That's my least out there one, so
Okay.
strap in.
I like that one.
Strap in.
Can't wait for the rabbit hole that Jake's about to take us down.
I hope we have time. I did watch a 2-hour video on YouTube.
Oh my God, Jake.
2 hours?
It was a sequel to the 40-minute one.
Oh
They
my
came back
God.
a couple years later. I'll tell you about it. Dustin, what do you got?
I don't even know how to follow up that setup. No, I'm gonna go with like the sweet one. So Toy Story 2, when Woody is watching the old video of the little boy playing with the puppet version of him, and he's like, he gets all wide-eyed, and like the fan theory states that the boy in the video is actually Andy's dad, and it connects to Woody is labeled as a family heirloom. That's how Andy's mom describes him. And
she says old family toy.
yeah, and so the theory is that was Andy's dad. That was his actual Woody, and so Woody has not only been a part of like Andy's whole lineage, but like he's really been a part of everything from childhood. So he's always been there for one of the members of the family. I thought that was a very cute, very sweet theory of like, this is Andy's dad, because we never see Andy's dad. So it kind of like gives that connection.
That was my first question as you were talking about it, is that then can add more weight to why Andy cares about Woody so much.
Right.
Is that
why he's so
we don't
connected
know.
to him.
There's a lot of theories about, the first Toy Story is about his parents going through a divorce and all of that stuff. And so maybe that's the case, but also maybe his dad died and he needs to hold on to that toy even more so. And saying then in Toy Story 3, saying goodbye to his toys is kind of even more. I cry already every time.
Oh yeah.
But it's even more so if he has to say goodbye to his dad in a way. And
It's almost like an extra cathartic healing moment for Andy of being able to move on and grow. Yeah, so that theory struck me as very sweet at first, and then you go down that, I wouldn't call it a rabbit hole because it's pretty short, but
logic trail.
That was one that made me be like, holy crap, I buy that theory 100% because it adds so much more emotional weight to this story, which already for our generation is such a like impactful and emotional tale. All four of them are just so great. I buy it. I'm all for that one.
I buy it too. It adds a good amount of emotional weight. Not that it needs it, obviously,
right.
It has that already. But once you've seen it 100 times, which I have, because for a while it was like the only movie that my 2-year-old was watching. Then you're like, give me anything new about this movie so I can enjoy it, and that sounds good.
All right.
Liz, what do you got? You got another?
Okay. Oh yeah, I have like a whole. Oh shit, you guys! I have like a whole list here.
Yeah,
fantastic.
See how like
options.
organized and nice her handwriting is.
Yeah,
I'm having a hard time reading my own handwriting.
I have a digital document, and I'm just scrolling up and down frantically trying to find what I'm looking for.
Is it an Excel sheet, Jake? Is it an Excel sheet?
It's a Google document, Word document thing. Sorry, Liz, go ahead.
Okay, so this one's about Greece. You guys are familiar.
I know this one.
Oh,
Greece.
I was like, the country?
Yes. No, Greece lightning.
Okay, gotcha. I'm with you.
And I'll tell you what the theory is and then give some explanation or like some proof that people have found. So the theory is that the whole story is Sandy recalling what her life would have been. So the theory is that Sandy dies the first summer that she dies on the beach. And then the movie is her recalling what her senior year of high school would have been. and Danny is her usher into the afterlife.
So she's
that's why
basically been
he's
dead the whole
constant.
time.
Yes.
Yep.
Okay.
And yeah, it's I don't know. I could see it. It's a little bit far out there, but if you do buy it, watching the movie is definitely different after knowing
Mm-hmm.
that it could be.
Yeah.
I guess.
Changes it for you.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting. Justin, what do you think of that?
I wrote that same one down because I was
Oh, did
like,
you?
this one's weird. And I was like, I'm not so sure I buy this one. And I read their explanation. And the thing that struck me that it seems like what really propelled this theory is the ending. When
Yeah.
they like drive up into the
Fly
sky,
off.
right? She's
Yeah.
flying. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a strange thing to do.
It's
Most
always
cars
been
don't
a
fly.
strange ending. Like, always. I think everyone has watched the movie and been like, this is so much fun. Why are they flying at the end? This makes no sense.
What's going on?
But you accept it. I don't know about this one. Because at no point in the opening, yeah, they're playing in the water, but then they're on the beach, like making out, and then he says goodbye to her.
Yeah.
At no point is there ever a scene of like potential peril. The only time that there's like peril is during the Summer Night song that he sings, where he says that she almost drowned. But that's kind of just like a lyric in the song, and Danny just still playing it cool, at least in my opinion, of like, well, she almost drowned, so of course I was like the hero. You're like, Danny, you've been kind of a douche this whole movie. Like, we know what's up.
Yeah.
So I don't know if I buy this one. It's an interesting and fun one, but I don't know that I buy it. And also, if that's the case, like, Sandy has a very low opinion of herself, because that would mean everyone else she's projecting, and they all ridicule her. They kind of like guilt trip her into doing stuff. So it kind of gets very sad very fast if you go down that rabbit hole. Jake, what about you?
I've never seen Grease, and so I don't know. I abstain from having an opinion.
All right.
Stop, you haven't seen it?
I've not seen it, and I was stalling by asking Dustin's opinion because I was looking up the plot of Grease as you were talking. And
there's not a lot that happens in the movie, if we're being honest.
It's got some great
sounds like singing and dancing mostly.
Yeah, it's a musical. It's super fun. It's awesome. It's one that we all watched like as kids, and then you grew up and you learned the words, and you were like, "Oh dear God, how did my parents let me walk around singing Grease Lightning?" Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah, I remember learning the lyrics to that song in high school and just having that moment of like,
that's what that is.
Okay, so they straight up say this, like that's not even a metaphor. They straight up have that line.
What are you referring to? I've never seen this movie.
He didn't. It's kind of weird that Liz is on the show and you want me to like, what is
it like bad?
It's kind of bad. He talks about making Sandy wet.
Liz earmuffs.
Earmuffs.
Kind of wearing them.
Yeah.
But it
okay.
Grease Lightning.
Look up the lyrics.
It's not for kids, huh?
Yeah, just read the lyrics, Jake. Just read it. Grease Lightning.
Yeah, I'll do more research and
then
I'll
when
get
you
back to
watch
everybody.
them sing the song, like they're dry humping like cellophane and
in a garage.
Weird.
Yeah.
Cellophane.
Seriously, it gets real weird real fast.
Nice. Okay. I'm glad I brought it up or made you describe all of it.
Thank you.
I'm sorry.
I shouldn't have felt a little like hesitant. We are on a show called Movie Boners.
Yeah, Liz knew what she was shining up
I was
for.
like, oh my God, this would be like trying to explain this to my daughter, and it's just not going to happen well.
Yeah. All right. Well, I guess in the vein of kind of children's stories, then I kind of like this one, and it's this
follow-up.
Yeah, I guess so. It's similar to, I guess, the kind of fan theory that we brought up at the beginning, and I said can be dumb, but I kind of buy this version of this kind of fan theory. So, in the story Peter Pan, we're all familiar with all of those movies, Hook in particular, there's a Disney Peter Pan. what if Peter Pan is the villain and Captain Hook is the hero, because Peter Pan is kidnapping lost boys from their parents when they're children, and so that's dark already, but it gets darker. If Peter Pan then murders the lost boys when they get too old, that's why they're perpetually all young, because he kidnaps young children, and then as they age out, he just bumps them off. And so Captain Hook could be the hero because he used to be a lost boy and he escaped being murdered by Pan, and that's why they're kind of enemies. And Captain Hook's whole crew is made up of lost boys that he's rescued, and it's kind of Captain Hook's life mission to save the lives of lost boys before Peter Pan murders them. And the clock that haunts him in the alligator or crocodile, whatever it is, it is just a constant reminder to Hook that his time is running out to save the lost boys, because they're always getting older. And so I thought that was pretty interesting as like an adult version of that story. I don't know, like, if I would like a movie about it. Like, in my mind, I was like, what if they did like a Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey kind of thing, where they just take this story and make it something completely different? I might like that, or I might hate it. I don't know, but I like the idea of this theory, at least.
Yeah, the idea of it's fun. It kind of gets shot to hell, though, when you remember the scene that Hook plants a bomb in their hideout. He doesn't know that the Lost Boys aren't there, but
semantics. I mean,
he straight up like pulls a terrorist move and is like, "And we blow you to bits. Bye bye." Like,
yeah, that looks bad. I admit, for sure.
You know, it's or with Hook, it gets shot to hell too, because Hook straight up murders like the lead Lost Boy. So, and he's kind of proud of it when he does.
R.I.P. Rufio.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's a fun theory until I blow those holes in it.
Yeah, that's true. Like a cannon off the port bow. Okay.
Liz,
maybe, yeah, Liz, do you buy this? So help me out.
Yeah, I do.
Okay.
Because, like we said, you are always the hero of your own story, and all these stories are told through Peter Pan's point of view.
Yes, right? He might be an unreliable narrator.
Yeah. Or
unless you read the book and then it's through
exaggerating.
Wendy's point of view. So.
Oh, well. How reliable is Wendy?
Yeah.
Oh, no. She was kind of like, here you go, boys. Go on.
Yeah. Hi.
Yeah. Okay. So there's some holes.
It's not perfect, but yeah, we'll look around, see if there's better better evidence to support that one.
It's a fun one, though, Jake. Don't worry. Okay. That's a fun one. I've heard that one for a long time.
Oh, have you?
I feel like that was one. Maybe I wasn't in high school, but sometime after high school, I feel like that's when I heard that theory. Was that Peter Pan was actually the villain? Yeah. All right. Well, I guess we're sticking with children's movies right now.
Okay.
Jake, this one might catch your ear just a little bit.
You know what I like, so probably.
Aladdin is actually like set in a post-apocalyptic future.
Oh, I'm super
in the past. As we believed. Yes.
You have me at post-apocalyptic for sure.
Yeah. And the evidence to support it is all of the, at the time, current pop culture references that the genie makes. He mentions areas and people that would not have existed yet, but he does perfect impressions of them.
Yeah, a lot of Hollywood stars.
The biggest impression that made that really perpetuated this area was he does a Schwarzenegger impression at one point. And it's just none of these people and places would have been around for about 10,000 years. So the fact that he's making all the references to it lends to, could Aladdin actually be post-apocalyptic? And this is just where mankind is at now.
Yeah. So the genie was from our time now, or the 90s, whatever, between the 40s and the 90s, because I know he has some old references too.
Mm-hmm.
And then something happens, and 10,000 years in the future, we have Aladdin. History, like humanity's rebuilt itself to that state of whatever they're at. That's interesting. I have to buy it on principle because I like post-apocalyptic stuff.
Knew it.
And I don't see like a reason why it would be. It's not like, I don't think the movie starts with like, it is this date in this time in this country and all that stuff. It's just kind of like, here's a story about a kid and a genie and a carpet.
Man, I don't know why, but I was waiting for you to break out into song like the Brady Bunch theme song. Just the way that your cadence was with that, I was like, is he about to sing? Like,
here's a story.
There it is. There it is.
Aladdin.
And a genie and a lamp and the princess. You can't rhyme it.
We try long enough.
Yeah, I think it's a fun one. I buy it just because it doesn't hurt the story at all. It takes nothing away from it.
It doesn't matter in any real way.
Yeah.
What do you think, Liz?
I can believe it.
She sounds a little hesitant. I don't know.
It sounds like she doesn't want to believe it.
Yeah.
It just has a very clear setting in a very specific place in the world. That makes sense. But I mean, it's not out of the realm of possibility.
Okay.
You're saying like, how could humanity have built itself back to that exact same culture and style that it has twice in human history and not have been very different the second time around? That's probably true. You probably have more of like a Mad Max / situation.
But you know what, Liz? History does tend to repeat itself. So maybe it literally repeats itself 10,000 years.
Fashion.
Fashion
is cyclical.
Fashion is 90s fashion's back, man. Or at least it's trying to be. But
the 80s stuff is coming back. Oh. It sure is.
Lawyered, I think.
Right. I have a theory to add onto your Aladdin theory.
Ooh, bonus Aladdin theory. Okay, I love
bonus Jonas, yeah. So the theory is that Aladdin really only used one wish, and he had 2 wishes left at the end of the movie.
What?
And the idea is that initially he wishes to become a prince, and so everything that happens after that until he becomes a prince is part of that wish. Which opens up the possibility of there being a sequel to Aladdin.
Well,
interesting.
We don't really need a sequel to the live action version.
I need a quick refresher on what Aladdin's wishes are.
So the first one, he wishes to become a prince. The second one involves like saving his life. And then the third one, he wishes the genie out of the lamp.
Oh, yeah. He saves the genie with his last one like he said he would do.
Yeah.
That makes sense. Saving the genie doesn't make him a prince, though. So that he would at least use 2.
It gives him the qualities that a prince has. All of the things that happen in between are making him into the person that Jasmine falls in love with and eventually marries.
Huh. That sounds like... You should have read the fine print kind of argument right there.
And Genie just makes off with the other 2 wishes.
Right. Oh. That's good.
Yeah, I guess he wishes for Genie to make him a prince, and we all assume that means he will be a prince then at that moment, and then if he is, then all of the other things don't really matter, because why would he be worried that Jasmine would find out that he's not a prince? Because he's a prince now. He wished it, and he would prince. So if that's not true, that he, like he said, he wishes for Genie to make him a prince, he has to go through the whole process of becoming a prince in order to be it.
That like simultaneously makes the Genie cooler for making him earn it. And then at the same time makes the Genie kind of a dick for being like, and I still snuck away with 2 wishes.
That's the whole point of a Genie, though. They're
like
tricky.
The total con artist right there. Yeah. Huh.
He's very frugal with his wishes.
Yeah, he is.
Don't use more than you have to. Yeah.
That one's
That's interesting. I'm gonna have to watch it again. With that
I
in
know,
mind, I think.
now I want to be like, wait a minute, he totally, but him wishing for his life to be saved, I could see that one being kind of like gray area because he never actually speaks the words because he's kind of underwater drowning.
Yeah, that one's always been a little bit like, oh, that shouldn't count. You like I had to, but
nice.
yeah. The genie wanted to save his life. He kind of tricked him into using a wish.
Yeah.
Well, he had to make him into a prince, and if he died, then he would
right.
like the wish.
Counterproductive, folks. Counterproductive.
Also true. Okay.
All right.
I like that a lot.
That one's interesting.
That one was interesting.
I'm going to be thinking about that one for a while. Okay. Huh.
Okay, let's see here. Okay, I like this one a lot, actually. So you all have all seen Groundhog Day, I'm sure. Everybody loves Groundhog Day. The theory is that Ned Ryerson, the insurance agent that he meets on the street, is actually the devil. And it's him meeting Phil on the street that basically starts the whole time loop in the first place. And so right before Phil meets Ned, he exhibits kind of a lack of righteousness by pretending to look for his wallet when there's a homeless man next to him, and he's just being a dick, but also trying to avoid the awkward interaction. And as he walks, right after he gets past him, then Ned sees him and calls out to him, and he's like, hey, remember me from high school? And Phil's like, I have no idea who you are or what you're talking about. So the theory is that Ned never went to high school with Phil. He's just kind of using that as a way to talk to him and interact with him. And so, of course, Phil doesn't remember him. And so it's possible that instead, when Phil decides not to buy life insurance from him, that's when the time loop starts. And Phil also insults him and steps off the curb into the puddle and gets his feet wet. And Ned says the first step's a doozy and laughs at him like kind of maniacally, like the devil would do. And also it's kind of a double entendre that the first step of this journey I just put you on is a doozy, not just the first step off the curb.
Okay.
And so he goes through the whole thing, a whole movie of Groundhog's Day. And then on the last day of the time loop, Phil finally does buy all kinds of life insurance and health insurance and the accidental death and dismemberment plan and all of that stuff, which could equate to selling your soul to the devil if you just get as much insurance as possible on yourself. Yeah. And that is the last day. And so then Ned frees him basically at that point. It's not making sure that Andy McDowell actually likes him or falls in love with him or whatever. It's Ned Ryerson. He's the devil.
I can see it.
Every time he shows up, Phil, you're always like, oh, this guy's the worst.
Oh,
so
God, this guy again.
Yeah, I could totally buy it.
Yeah, he has that smarmy nature that I feel like goes well with
insurance salesman, so
I don't know if that theory would ever change how I view the movie, but it's fun, and I will buy it.
I like it.
Principle. Yeah,
that's fun.
Yeah, I agree.
Well, if we're gonna go down the devil route, I've got one about the devil. Let's go from Grease, which is not child friendly, to child movies. Now we're into Satan. All right, we know how to segue.
Yeah.
So mine would be a Home Alone theory, but not the one that everyone around the globe seems to be fixated on. Because that one, it's a fun theory, but it's so bad that I don't give it credence. But this one is interesting. In the first movie, when Kevin's mom is so desperate to get back home that she is willing to do almost everything in her moment of pure desperation, the sweetest man of Hollywood ever, John Candy, approaches her and offers her, like, we can give you a ride. I can help you out. I'm a polka king. Like, I play the flute. And she's like, you'd be willing to do that? And he's like, well, yeah, of course. The theory is that John Candy is Satan. And
all right, sir.
and only approaching Mrs. McAllister in her most broken, vulnerable, desperate moment to exploit her. And that little aspect of him, and then the whole thing of him being like this flute player lends to some old folklore of Satan playing that instrument, and that's how he kind of helps lure people to him to make him think that he's like,
or like Pan,
kind of he's like the Pied Piper and all that. So the theory is that John Candy, the sweetest man in Hollywood during the 80s and 90s, is Satan. Yeah.
Like just because, like he doesn't
just because,
actually do
like that's
anything.
where the theory ends.
It ends
like,
there. That's it.
There's not a lot.
Doesn't
to
affect anything.
Yeah.
It sounds like there's somebody out there that really doesn't like John Candy and just tried to find an excuse.
This is that one of those theories that I came across that I was like, oh dear God, people, what is wrong with you? Like, you're reaching, or you're just desperate to ruin something great. How dare you go against John Candy?
Just rude.
Yeah.
So I don't buy this one at all. I just had to bring it up because you brought up the devil. So
yeah, I don't think I buy it either. That I would need a why. I would need like, oh, he helps her for this reason, but then he gets this out of it or whatever. And
which he doesn't. He literally just helps her get home to be with her kids.
It's the most selfless act ever. Yeah.
Just a nice guy.
It's John Candy, people. It's John Candy. Like,
yeah. Okay. What, you don't think so either, Liz?
No,
that's silly. Okay. I don't know how to. I guess not even my turn. Go ahead, Liz. It's your turn.
Yeah, he has to figure out how to segue from John Candy.
I was trying to keep the devil train going, but I can't do it.
Well, I kind of can.
All right.
Perfect.
It's not really the devil, but an evil force.
It works.
And this one, I think maybe common knowledge. I'm not huge into Star Wars lore. I've seen some of the Star Wars movies, so I know enough. But this one is the idea that Jar Jar Binks is actually a Sith Lord.
Oh, yes. I have heard this.
Yeah, I'm familiar with this
And
one.
there's a lot of evidence against him.
Is it just because he's so irritating that you have to justify it?
So there's 3 things specifically that I was like, okay. Like, I kind of get it. So the first one is, and I'm going to butcher this pronunciation, but it's like Z Quan, which is
Do you mean Qui-Gon?
Maybe. It's the drunken boxing.
Oh.
No.
Okay.
Qui-Gon.
So it's a Chinese style of martial arts where it's kind of like haphazard and you're just kind of like flailing about, but it's like a style of fighting. And this is like, people are like, this is what Jar Jar Binks does. If you watch him, that is how he moves. And then seemingly purposefully making mistakes. And he's just like always apologizing and like, oh, was that clumsy me? Like, did I do that? Like, oh, like,
Steve
oh, so
Urkel.
sorry. And you're like how, like you had to try to make this big of a mistake kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And then the last one is he kind of like fumbles his way into some kind of power. He's like a governor of some kind, which ultimately leads to the Palatine takeover. I think that's what they're called.
Palpatine.
Yeah, Palpatine.
Yeah. He kind of manipulates him or uses him in some way. I don't really remember, but he ends up in the Senate and basically supports his plan to take over all this stuff.
Yeah, on accident.
Because I think he even does that like, kind of.
Was that me?
Yeah.
Sorry, whole planet, just a little genocide.
My
Don't
bad.
mind me.
Yeah.
Little old Jar Jar over here.
Like it's hard for me to believe it, like, even though I want to believe. Like that's my whole thing going into this. I'm like Fox Mulder. Whatever. What? Yeah,
believe it
Fox
all.
Mulder.
Yeah.
I want to believe though anything that you tell me, but at
Drinking
this
all the
case,
Kool-Aid.
in this case, I just hate Jar Jar so much, and he's so dumb that. But maybe he pulled one over on me. Maybe, I mean, that is a thing for sure, that he could have just subverted my expectations and played the fool, and I bought it completely.
Yeah.
But
see,
I don't want to believe it.
yeah, I remember.
I don't want to believe he's smart enough to do that.
Yeah, I remember this theory when it came out, because it was shortly after what's the third one? That fucking stupid one. Anakin cries for 2 hours.
Yeah.
We're fans, Liz. Can you tell? It came out after that one, where people were like, Jar Jar's a Sith Lord. And I think that only came out because people were trying so hard for any kind of validation for those stupid movies and that horrible character. I've never bought this one because I'm like, the Sith are always like intimidating. They're evil. They don't hide behind it. There is no like, the only hiding is in politics because they're manipulating it. But everything outside of that is violent and evil. They don't care. And Jar Jar sucks so much. I'm with Jake. Like, he's such a terrible character. No, no.
Yeah.
No.
And he'd have to be like a super secret spy the whole time, because I feel like Palpatine refers to Darth Maul as like his apprentice, and like as if he's the only apprentice. Like, there's only two of them. Even what's his name? The Samuel L. Jackson's character.
Sure.
He's like, there's always two of them, or Yoda says there's always two of them. Somebody says there's always two Sith Lords, and you can't have three. That would be weird.
Unless nobody knows. It's just so secret. Nobody knows.
I mean, I am trusting Samuel L. Jackson's character. Maybe he's wrong in that assumption that he's making, and Yoda's also wrong. I don't think that's true. Yoda's always right.
I don't think Yoda's ever been wrong. So.
But I would say he's human and fallible, but I don't think he's human either. So he's probably right.
So
the writers have not denied it.
Well, that's because George Lucas is just so desperate, and
they're just like,
he's not a writer anymore.
Yeah,
I wouldn't be surprised if Disney leans into it to like revive Star Wars, because they need. I don't actually know what the numbers are. I'm pulling this out of my ass. I feel like nobody really cares as much as they want people to care. But I know there are tons of Star Wars fans.
I think it's built up to be so much more popular than it actually is, because they have all those Star Wars shows on Disney Plus, and you're supposed to see it everywhere that you go. But I think it's just kind of like social media popularity, where it's like, are people really watching? Because Star Wars is not that great. We used to be huge fans, Liz. We really used to be. But
the original ones were good.
Are amazing.
They should have stopped.
The actual original ones, not the
remakes.
The remastered original ones.
Bullshit ones that Lucas forced the world to have.
Yeah, that he's changed the CGI and cutting and editing and all that stuff.
And this is the part of the show where Liz triggers Jake and Dustin to go on.
We're not doing it. We did a 4-hour Star Wars episode if you want to hear about it. Okay. I guess on the topic of how am I going to lead into this? Of pretty good characters that everybody has agreed are not evil doing something horribly heinous and bad. That's my lead into this one.
Okay.
Something that Kermit the Frog has done in his life leads and causes 9/11.
Dude, I'm gonna shut this one down
we
right
need
out.
Some explanation.
Like, you can explain. I'm gonna tell you right now. I'm gonna have like the biggest. Nope.
It doesn't mean that he himself is like directly and materially involved in planning 9/11 and executing
he started the dominoes.
Yes,
I'm still
there's a
dominoes.
There's a butterfly effect. There's a butterfly effect. So in the 2002 TV movie, it's a very Merry Muppet Christmas movie that you, I'm sure, have seen. It's the one that's it's based on It's a Wonderful Life.
Yep, it's incredible.
There's a part where the angel shows Kermit an alternate reality where he was never born. And in that alternate reality, for whatever reason, in those scenes, you can see the Twin Towers still standing in that footage. The movie came out post 9/11. in all the other parts of the movie, when Kermit is like living his life and it's his normal original universe timeline, the towers are not there, obviously. And so he's shown a world where he was never born. And in that world, the towers are still standing. And in the world where he ended up getting born, they're not for some reason.
Feels like an editing mistake.
Yeah.
It is canon.
No, it is not canon. That's bullshit, Jake. As a Muppet fan, you should be angry at this theory.
I know you have Kermit over your shoulder right now.
I do, goddammit. Liz doesn't believe me. I really do have Kermit with me.
I love that.
Times. Yes.
That's amazing.
All the time.
I knew I would trigger you with that. I just knew it.
No.
Have you ever heard that before?
I like that. That's kind of fun.
Oh, Liz.
It's been very nice. It's been very nice having you, Liz. I'm sorry we have to let you go.
You must leave now.
Yeah, it's for your own safety.
I feel like this is an editing mistake, or they filmed it pre 9/11. Didn't put any thought to it.
That was old or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, nobody noticed until it was already put out.
Until internet sad boys that just want to ruin good things were like, you know what?
This was all Kermit's fault.
Yeah.
Yeah. So no, I don't like your theory, Jake. It's
That's fine. It's not for everybody.
Yep.
I think it's kind of fun too.
Shut up.
It doesn't make him like at blame. He can still be pure-hearted and wonderful, but the butterfly effect, you just can't control it. You never know where it's going to go. Okay, I'm not going to convince you. Let's move on.
But you know what? I'm going to follow your heels of ridiculous, stupid theories that people just want to, I don't know, pull stuff out of their ass with this one, which has nothing to do with terrorist attacks or evil, really. But it is time traveling. That makes no sense at all. So Jack Dawson, we all have seen Titanic. We all know the Never Let Go Jack, and the fact that the door was in fact large enough to fit both of them. It really was.
Didn't James Cameron debunk that?
No, that's not theory. People have actually tried it and been like, "Yep, both fit."
Okay.
like MythBuster the hell out of that. Yeah.
And he was small too. Like,
and
would have been okay.
1997, Leo was
scrawny
kind
boy.
of a scrawny kid. So, but the theory is Jack Dawson is a time traveler.
Oh.
And this is fueled by the fact that he mentions a lake and a roller coaster at the Santa Monica Pier, and neither were actually in existence at the time of the Titanic.
Okay.
And that is the full basis of the theory. And it made me kind of be like, this doesn't sound like time traveler stuff. This sounds like the writers didn't
do the research. But it would mean that he knowingly got on the Titanic, because everybody knows the Titanic sucks.
Right.
And so if he knowingly got on the Titanic, why did he get on the Titanic?
To meet Rose.
But he didn't know.
He doesn't know that he's going to meet Rose.
Unless he knew
her later in life. He met her later
maybe
on.
he knew her later in life and he wanted a meet cute early on in her life. Because maybe she's unrequited love, or maybe not even unrequited, but just the timing didn't work out. And maybe she was married or something. And he's like, man, we would have been soulmates, but it just wasn't the right time. So he goes back into the past.
And to ruin everything.
I will meet you before. Yeah. Maybe it's hubris because he feels like I will survive the Titanic with you and we will be in love forever.
Yeah.
And then he didn't.
No.
Spoiler alert for Titanic.
He ruined everything with the time travel.
Fucking time travel. You can't trust it, man. You just can't trust
it.
Yeah.
This one made me laugh. I don't buy it, but it made me laugh because I was like, Titanic has nothing to do at any point with like anything science fiction.
No.
But leave it to some people that were like, wait a minute. That lake was not named that until after this. So time travel. Someone watched a lot of Doctor
Yeah.
Who and then watched.
That's
they
the fun
watched
thing,
like
is,
over
like-
and over again.
Yeah.
That's the fun thing, is that like some of these are like, oh, the creator actually intended for this story to be
Right.
told in this way, and nobody has picked it up until now. And then some of it's like, yeah, there's no way he was thinking about that in any way, shape, or form.
Like,
You just
of
made
all,
that up.
all the
Mhm.
things that you are supposed to be focusing on in this movie, and you focused on that roller
That.
coaster was not at the Santa Monica Pier.
A fleeting little
Right,
Line.
like a line.
nugget of information.
When I read this theory, I was like, he mentions a lake and a
I was like, a roller coaster?
like, I don't remember.
Yeah, like, why is he making specific references to things that are not in this scene? Yeah, that's weird.
It's like, at what point did he talk about this? I don't remember.
To watch
Yeah.
it again.
Like,
Interesting.
is it the biggest takeaway where he's like the guy hitting the propeller when he falls, which was hilarious and still makes me laugh? And, you know,
He's like, what that sound reminds me of when I was on the pier in Santa Monica.
Oh, no.
that's the sound of the bell when the roller coaster gets ready to go.
Yep. All right, that's a fun one. I like
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
Do you have
Liz,
any
what
more,
else
Liz?
you got?
Oh, I have so many.
Okay, good. I
what
don't want to
one-
be the loser that has a million and nobody
I
else
have
has
so
any more.
many. I have so many.
What made you kind of be like, hell no, but I'm bringing it up? I'm curious. 'Cause you've been very pro a lot of these theories, so I
Yeah.
I am a believer.
you and
I-
you gotta lay off Kool-Aid, man.
Just about anything, honestly.
The
you-
problem is that I'm not drinking Kool-Aid. I'm not drinking fluoride in my water. I got tinfoil hats on. You can't catch me sleeping.
Well, apparently
No
someone has.
Okay, so this one actually is believable. And it's one that like maybe the writers intended it this way. They were like, haha, this will be funny. So it's from Shrek, which is everybody's favorite movie. And
Mm.
the
Yeah.
the theory is that Donkey is a Pleasure Island child from Pinocchio.
Oh, gross.
And the proof that I have is number one, no one in this movie, in this fictional land that they're in, seems to have ever heard of or seen a talking donkey. So he's a one of
Yeah.
a kind. And we know from Pinocchio that only some of the children retain their ability to speak.
Mhm.
And then Donkey also makes a lot of references to his past, and a lot of the things that he says are human things, like getting a
Mm.
wedgie or like other things that a child would have experienced. And
Okay.
yeah, I don't know. I
Yeah.
believe this one. I'm like, I kind of think the Shrek people would be like, this is hilarious.
Oh my god.
There's a kid in Pinocchio that gets turned into a donkey.
I
isn't
totally agree
Yeah,
with you.
a
on
whole
this one,
island
Liz.
of
oh my
children.
God.
there? Oh, all the kids get turned into donkeys?
Yeah,
I
they
just
kidnap
very
them,
vividly
take them
remember
there.
how
Yeah, they all.
It's
It's when they're in
terrifying.
like
Setting it
that
was,
pool
yeah.
hall bar area that they
Yes.
all start turning into
And
donkeys.
they
yeah.
smoke and drink,
Yeah.
and they're
And let's face it, the Pinocchio that's like shown in the Shrek franchise,
yeah.
he's adventurous. I mean,
That's one way to put it.
yep.
Oh,
You know, he cross dresses. He
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense.
Kind of makes sense, Liz. Oh god.
He's like the only character that's not from a fairy tale.
and
And
it
if this fixes that, basically.
and it would totally
Yep.
make sense. I'm with you, Liz, that the writers totally would set this up because there's a lot of jokes like
Yeah.
Lord Farquaad, just jokes in general,
Yep.
that are not child friendly.
Nope.
yeah,
by
it
any
was made for a
sense.
broad audience. for sure.
Yes,
Kids
and-
still think it's funny.
Right, like they'll giggle about it.
They don't
while the
know
adults
why.
Suddenly have that realization of like, oh my god, Donkey is from
Yeah.
Fantasy Island.
Yes.
Like, oh dear God, no one ever
Unscathed
judges the
child.
bestiality in the film, like with Donkey and the dragon.
dragon.
How that worked out. I'm
It's not
like,
bestiality, it's just interspecies
true, sorry, wrong
relationship.
word, interspecies. But I'm
Yeah.
almost 40, and
Not that I'm
I
defending it.
still get perplexed by how that would work.
Anatomically.
Like, there are moments where it just kind of like, here's the question. How did Donkey and the Dragon mate? And my brain is like, well, we're stuck on this for a while.
Yeah. Kids
And
don't
you've
think
got
that way.
diagrams and charts and
That kind of mathematics doesn't add up. I feel like I'd be able to figure out quantum physics quicker than that. So I'm for this one, Liz. I actually am, because it's so gross, but it really does fit.
It makes sense.
Yeah.
yeah.
Ugh.
Yeah, that's pretty gnarly, but I like it.
All right.
Okay.
Huh.
I guess going back to Dustin's time traveling Jack Dawson theory, there are a lot out there about Back to the Future.
Yeah.
But I think my favorite one is that the rape of Lorraine was always part of the original timeline. And Biff, in the original timeline, Marty wasn't there to stop it, and so it happened. And that's why when she's like she's alcoholic, she's depressed, and there's the disconnect between her and her husband. They all look back on that time as like very traumatic. It just doesn't mesh well. And then when Marty goes back in time and stops Biff, and that kind of prevents it. And so then when he goes back in the future, his parents are like very happy and together and not traumatized, and it ends up being a really, really positive thing.
Okay. That makes that first movie kind of dark, or the whole thing kind of dark for a little bit.
Yeah.
But it does fit with the, like, because that trilogy, that story is so like uplifting and not a inspirational way, but it's just because you always feel just so great after watching it. Like, you can be in the worst mood, you throw on Back to the Future, and then you're like,
it's just happy.
Yeah, you're like, all right, let's do this. Like, the future's what I make it. Hell yeah, Doc. So I'm for this one. I agree with this one, because I think there's a lot of really dark things in their past that when it starts, everything's so bleh. So I like that Marty is kind of the one accidental catalyst that like changes
make it all better
and makes it better. Kind of saves his parents, because that's like the whole point of the first movie, is he's trying to reunite his parents and save the day for them so that they can have their
I think he's just
story.
trying to get them together, but it's also
Makes
kind
a
of more
bigger
than just
difference.
getting them together.
Yeah, I like this one, man. I'm for this one. Liz?
Yeah, I like it. Makes
like
it
this
happier.
Yeah.
Yeah.
not right away, but
Yeah, not often does rape in a PG-13 movie make it happier, but yeah, eventually.
It gets there.
it does get there. It does get there.
That's what counts.
Man, I don't know which one to follow up with, because I have a Back to the Future one and a Shrek one.
Ooh.
Maybe you just do both.
Yeah,
Okay,
might as well
let's do both. All right, I'll start with the Back to the Future one. Marty's dad knows that Marty was the one who traveled back in time and helped save everything the entire time throughout the whole story.
They should know.
The idea is that the dad, especially, because he's the one that Marty like works with the most, and he writes the whole book about him, and he recognizes the music that Marty is obsessed with, like growing up. He would recognize all this stuff, and then he puts it all into the book. So the book would actually end up kind of being like a thank you love letter to his own son,
like a memoir.
Yeah, so you see the confidence from the dad night and day from beginning of Back to the Future to the end, and it's because he was able to like recognize his son as being the one of like, not only were you a joy as our child, but you're the whole savior of this whole life.
You're the reason.
You're the reason.
You're saying at the end, he recognizes
it
him.
would be at the
not
end.
when he's in the past, he doesn't recognize
No,
him.
When he gets to the point where he looks
first
the
one,
same
and
as he did.
the look that his dad gives Marty when he
gives him the truck
the first time with the truck and everything, there's a lot of like quiet, unspoken things that a father would kind of do to their child of like, I know.
It would be hard to hear a crazy rock and roll song in the 50s and then not hear it for 20 years or whatever.
Right, especially when your son is playing that song.
And then your son is playing it over and over and learning it on the guitar daily, and you're like, that sounds so familiar. He probably would have figured it out.
Yeah. So do you like that one? What do you think on that one?
I buy it.
Yeah, I like that one.
Yeah, I think so. I'm picturing the ending and how they look at each other. I think I like how that fits. I definitely do.
Yeah.
Okay. And what's your Shrek one?
And the Shrek one is that Shrek actually never had a name. He makes it up on the spot when Donkey asks him.
I saw that one. That's where he got Shrek. Like, he was like,
It just kind of blurted the first thing that came to his mind out. I didn't read too much into it, but I saw it and was like, really? And then like I said, Liz, maybe you went down the rabbit hole with it. I was scrolling a lot of, I was trying to learn other fan theories at the same time. But that one I could kind of see, and mainly because Shrek lives in isolation on purpose. Mm-hmm. He never mentions like moms and dad, any kind of family or friends.
That's what I was wondering, if he has parents or not.
Yeah, so he's just this isolated ogre who's super like disgruntled and just negative. So when someone asks him a name, he doesn't have a name. He would just like say face, if you will. Mm-hmm. So Liz, did you actually read the theory? Is that like kind of what it talked about of like he doesn't have...
it kind of just said like he didn't have a name, but I did read I kind of went down like a Shrek rabbit hole, which I don't recommend it because there's some interesting things out there that people have written about.
Say interesting movie. As if it's like bad interesting.
Yeah.
It's fan fiction involving the donkey.
Leave it to the internet to ruin good things. All right.
Yeah. There's we'll come back to that. But anyway, I saw where someone, because there's not a lot of like ogre lore. Like they don't talk. There's you don't really ever see like other ogres, and so there was someone saying that potentially Shrek is like centuries old. Like he's very old. He's been around for a long time. And potentially he was a human at some point and had the same situation that Fiona was in, turned into an ogre, and has just been living that way for so long that he's like doesn't remember his name, doesn't remember his past life. Like, I don't know.
Okay.
Nobody's ever called him by it because he's been alone.
Yeah. Okay.
He's just kind of
existing. That one would... I could kind of buy that one, because obviously they're not going to throw him in a tower guarded by a dragon. It would just be like, now you're this, so good luck.
Yeah.
Okay.
But if you want to see some not so PG Shrek content, there's a YouTube video called Shrek is Love, Shrek is Life, and it is entertaining.
Okay.
I'm not sure that was such a convincing tone that it's actually entertaining.
It's funny.
Okay.
But there's a lot of content.
Questionable
also,
funny.
So be cautious.
Yeah. I'm sure.
Proceed with caution.
I get it. Okay.
All right. I guess it's Liz's turn.
Okay, so I have some options. I don't know if we want to get into The Shining just yet. I'm assuming that's the one you did a lot of research on.
Jake probably...
I have a little bit about The Shining.
I'll leave that one for now. So I've got... Okay, I'll go with Harry Potter.
Okay.
Oh, which one?
It's a Harry Potter theory about Avada Kedavra, the killing spell, and how it's related to abracadabra. Okay. And the thought is that Avada Kedavra was first created for wizards to kill muggles with.
Okay.
And then after the wizarding world was hidden from the muggles, it became like a myth, like a folklore kind of thing. And over time, it turned into abracadabra. And so that's kind of how it molded, which I can kind of see, but I also think J.K. Rowling took abracadabra and turned it into Avada Kedavra. So
Right, like it was
Yeah.
a writing decision. She needed something to sound magical
She's like,
and weird,
Yeah.
but familiar at the same time.
yes, yeah,
mhm.
Mhm. Interesting.
Yeah. As a Harry Potter fan, and Jake, I know you're like, you're probably writing your note like, I have no clue what the fuck she's talking about right now. But
Okay, I have seen the movies. I know a little bit, but I wouldn't call myself a fan by any means.
I totally buy this one. I'm for this one because the Harry Potter world, and even J.K. Rowling has said like it's so big. Like there's so
Mhm.
much lore that she knows to it, and she kind of hints to a lot of it with like the early stuff, or the Grindelwald stuff. But I totally would buy this one. That at one point, Muggles and wizards would have had to kind of mingle and be together, and then something catastrophic would have happened to separate the two.
Mhm.
So I buy it just because at some point it makes sense in my mind that the two would have been together and then been forced to split.
Mhm.
So
Yeah, I can see that.
yeah, I like this one.
Okay,
I thought it was
I'll take your word for it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, definitely interesting.
Since you brought up Harry Potter, I do have one very big Harry Potter one, so we'll stay on topic there.
Ooh.
And I forgot that Dustin was a Harry Potter fan, so we'll see how much this rustles your
Oh
jimmies.
no.
There's a very extensive post on Reddit, the Our Fan Theories page, that put together by the user Emperor Death Bunny with a bunch of citations and videos and everything, references to all of the things. So I'm
Okay.
just going to read the summarized short version.
Okay. The clip notes.
Yeah. The theory is that the reason Hermione Granger ends up with Ron Weasley is because Ron Weasley used the Imperious Curse, one of the unforgivable curses, on her to make her fall in love with him instead of Harry Potter, who she would have more naturally have fallen in love with. And he uses a bunch of evidence about how much of a dick Ron is, and treats Hermione very poorly across all of the films, and basically is abusive, and eventually, but for some unknown reason, she eventually is like, oh, that Ron Weasley, he's kind of cute, and falls in love with him towards the end. And so in, where is it? Yeah, I guess it's in the Half-Blood Prince that she suddenly is really into Ron at that point. And the reason that he would do this, I'm sure you're asking yourself, why would sweet little Ron Weasley use an unforgivable curse against Hermione?
It's not exactly the question I have in my head, but go on.
We'll get to your question, I'm sure. Because he was jealous of Hermione's affection towards Harry, obviously, that if he liked her and she liked Harry, that's a triangle that he would rather win out on. But also being frustrated by being one of the youngest Weasley children and exhausted from living in Harry's shadow. Everything's easy for Harry, and it's very hard for Ron. He always gets insulted. He never gets anything right. He's always just at the bottom rung, and everything's easy for Harry, and he's the chosen one and all that stuff. So there's a lot of bitterness and resentment, I think, that builds up there. And then in the Deathly Hallows, Ron suggested murder as a solution. In other movies, Ron demonstrates abusive behavior towards Hermione, manipulation, grooming, coercion. Other times, Ron pulls Hermione away when she's calling for Harry, and he resents her for focusing on Harry. And so you might say that doesn't mean that he uses this curse on her, but Ron demonstrates that he does successfully use the Imperious Curse on a Bogrod, the Goblin Teller, at one point. And in order to master that spell, you have to have been practicing it at some point somewhere. And so then the supposition is that over the films, he's been practicing and gaining proficiency on it by practicing it on Hermione, because they're hanging out all the time, and he's just trying to get better and better, and eventually it kind of solidifies after so long together.
Okay.
And yeah, and I think he mentions early on in the movies that he learned or heard about the spell from his dad, so he admits to being familiar with it early on, and then ends up using it against that Bogrod later on. And but there's no explanation as to like how he's so able to do that or good at it. And that spell would solve a very strange love that blossoms very quickly in the movies. It also is assuming that the movie universe is completely unrelated from the book universe. And
that's what I was going to bring up.
If you just watch the movies for the stories that are in the movies, that you have to go on that alone.
Okay.
That
Liz,
makes
you
him
first
evil.
or me?
I don't know. I don't think Ron has it in him to do that to her. I know he's like a little twerp. But I think a lot of the way he treats Hermione is just like them being kids and being jealous of each other and all this stuff. So I don't know. I don't think little Ron Weasley has it in him to do that to her.
Yeah.
Sweet little Ron
I don't want to
Weasley.
believe it.
No, see, mine isn't so much like, why would Ron do this way? I mean, he's definitely jealous of Harry, and that really comes out in the Deathly Hallows.
Yep.
My biggest question to this theory is like, Ron really sucks at like all things magic. He just can't really pull anything off. And when he does pull it off, it's like by accident and one of those like, it was a one-time thing that he got it right. It's like me trying to whistle. I've gotten it right once in all my years and never been able to repeat it. So I just think like he's just actually incapable of doing it. Like,
in the movies for sure.
He's just not talented enough. Plus, Hermione is, and my dad would say this, I agree with my dad, Hermione is the hero of the whole thing. Harry would not be able to accomplish a single thing in the whole story without Hermione's help. She's the smartest out of all of them, and she doesn't put up with anyone's shit. So like every time that Ron's being a twerp to her, she usually calls him out on it or just lets him continue to sound off.
Punishes him in some way.
Yeah, she just lets him prove like he's an idiot. So
come to this conclusion on his own.
Yeah, so I don't really buy this one. Good job to the dude for diving and like creating
citations and all this stuff.
Right. I mean, and there's
somebody
definitely
really doesn't like Ron.
There's definitely moments in the movies where Ron, you're like, oh, he totally like gaslights her. He totally guilt trips her to do what he wants her to do. But at the end of the day, I'm with Liz where I take it more as like schoolyard bickering and flirting, right?
They kind of all do it to each other. Like Hermione definitely gaslights Ron and Harry multiple times. You're like, girl, whoa.
They all manipulate each other, but
they do.
Like Harry isn't even that intelligent until towards the end of the story. I mean, Hermione really does bail him out on everything. So, I don't know about that one, but I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know.
That's okay. It's not my favorite. I have two really big ones that I can't wait to tell you about that.
I know.
Maybe next round.
I know the shiny one's coming up, and I'm like, okay. I'm not going to I'm letting you two bring that one up because I knew it was coming up.
I think mine is not the one you're thinking of.
Well, there's a couple big ones.
We'll see.
I know one of you's going to bring up the big one.
Are we diving into The Shining? Are we going to do that?
Not yet.
We've been
I have
talking
one more
about it a lot.
Fun
okay,
one
go ahead.
Before we get into that crazy rabbit hole. I'm stalling because I'm not a fan of the rabbit hole, so I know it's coming up inevitably. All right, Jake. This one I think I'm kind of shocked you haven't brought this one up. just to see my reaction. So I'm going to bring this one up.
Okay.
It involves my all-time favorite movie, The Matrix.
Yeah. I did have or a couple of that. Go ahead.
When Neo is presented with the red pill and the blue pill, he is told that the blue pill will take him back into the Matrix and his life will continue and he won't know anything different. And the red pill takes him down the rabbit hole.
Mm-hmm.
The theory is that the blue pill will kill Neo. The blue pill is a poison capsule to kill people who refuse to be freed. And the, I guess, evidence that supports it is a line from Morpheus as he's describing people that are still plugged into the Matrix potentially becoming agents. And if you kill a potential agent, you are, in effect, combating the evil of the machines.
Especially one that you've already identified as being powerful enough or having the potential to be worth seeking out and making this offer to.
Yeah. So that's the theory, is that the blue pill is actually a poison capsule.
Interesting.
If Neo would have chosen that, it would be better to have Neo die than to have him potentially become such a powerful, if not potentially the most powerful agent inside the Matrix.
Yeah. That imbues some nefariousness to Morpheus's character, but he's always been kind of, by any means necessary, kind of a guy. So it's plausible, I think.
That's how I took it. I took it as plausible, and I could also take it as Morpheus wouldn't see it as murdering Neo.
Yeah.
He would take it as like preventing even more worse destruction towards mankind.
Yeah, I mean, they're barely alive right now. They're essentially in a coma that they're not ever going to wake up from naturally.
So it'd be like taking him off of life support, you know?
Yeah, pull the plug.
Yeah, that one made me kind of like, oh, that kind of gives like a weird motive or whatever to Morpheus that I'm not sure I'm on board with. But it kind of would make sense to me. So it put me in kind of a weird, like, ooh, where do I stand with this? This is weird because it kind of questions Morpheus's character.
It doesn't like change the whole story like some fan theories do. It's really just a small detail that escalates the stakes a little bit, but it's not a major deal.
Yeah. Liz, what do you think?
Yeah.
I mean, I can believe it because, well, number one, when he's presented with the pills, like he doesn't know them that well. So they could be telling him anything. Like they could have told him the opposite of what they actually were. He could have been talking to machine people for all we know.
Right. They could be programs.
So it could be anything. They could do nothing. The pills could do nothing.
It's true.
Yeah, they could be placebos instead.
Yeah.
Interesting. I guess before we get into the depth of The Shining, I have a couple Matrix things to throw out there as well. And they're kind of independent, but they could also work together into one giant theory. One is that Morpheus is wrong about humans being a power source for the machines, and they don't need electric power as much as they need computing power. And so they actually are using our brains as CPUs and processors to run the Matrix on, and they're all just kind of like connected.
Yeah. That's interesting.
That feeds into what if the real world is, including Zion and everything and all of the machines in the real world, is really just another level of the Matrix, that they're all still in the Matrix. It's a program for rebels and people not willing to conform to the system, that they can basically live out the fantasy of being a freedom fighter against evil machines, even though you're not actually really doing anything. And then that explains why Neo has powers in the real world towards the end and can destroy all the machines all of a sudden, if he is able to then bend both levels of the Matrix. And then if Neo was created by the machines as a character to fulfill that prophecy, to let them live out that rebel program.
Like an NPC.
And then as they fulfill the story arc, then it'll just reset and start over, basically.
Well, that definitely feeds into, well, I feel like that all stems, that's how I need to say it. It all stems from the architect's monologue in Reloaded, where the architect tells him, like, you think you're the first one, like, or the only one. We've had 6 before you. I think it adds kind of like a dangerous layer that the real world is just another program. It kind of makes it scarier to me, I guess, because the whole point is to unplug from everything that's like detrimental to you. Trying not to go down like a super philosophical road right before a shining rabbit hole. So I could see all of that being plausible, but Neo's story of being like the savior and the allegory of all of it, even the Wachowskis have kind of said like he's the one. So the further he goes into being or to fulfilling that prophecy, the better his like powers become, or the more powerful he actually becomes. He's like able to see stuff and do things that a normal person should not be able to do. And he kind of shows that to the architect, who the architect tells him, like, you're not going to pull this off. You can't save her. You're not going to make it to this point. Like, that's not how your path ends. And he's even kind of bitter when he talks to when the architect talks to the Oracle about all of it. He's kind of like, yeah, I guess, kind of like a dude that lost a bet. Right. So I don't know. I think those are plausible, just like the blue pill theory, but I don't know that I actually would buy into it.
Yeah.
Because I think it demeans the character a little bit, or the point of the story.
I just know that if I was in the Matrix and I got taken out, it wouldn't be too long before I started wondering that.
Oh yeah.
Once you get taken out of one simulation, you're like, is this real?
Also?
Oh, yeah. You can't just start trusting that, oh, we did it. We solved the problem. There's no more levels of the Matrix.
Right.
Yep.
Okay. So now the big moment. Are you ready, Liz?
Yeah.
The Shining.
So the one I have is probably the one that most people are familiar with, and it's the whole Kubrick filmed the moon landing idea. And there's actually like an entire documentary about it.
Yeah, there is.
Yeah, Room 237. It's great.
Yeah, so there's a whole thing you can go and like read more about it, but basically there's a whole bunch of people out there who believe that we haven't actually landed on the moon, that maybe nobody's landed on the moon, and that Stanley Kubrick just filmed it and doctored it up to make it look like that's what happened. And there's a lot of weird things, like we haven't been back to the moon for some reason, and like, I don't know, like all of our space missions are just to go like to the space station. And there's, it's a little bit too convenient to not like believe it a little bit and be like, well, I don't know, like,
yeah,
it's questionable.
Yeah, you would think if we'd been to the moon, you would want to expand on that, but now we're just kind of like, yeah, we saw it all.
Advances in technology, like,
yeah, true. Yeah, we haven't been back since the 60s or whatever.
Yeah,
it's kind of weird.
It's suspicious for sure.
I'm not gonna lie, I already didn't really believe in I'm a partial non-believer. Okay. I think that we did go to the moon. I just don't think we went the first time.
Yeah.
I think that it was too rushed.
We lied about
it. Yeah, I totally believe that they would put out some propaganda to say we beat the Russians to the moon and look at us and I, in the grand scope of all of the things that the American government has done that have been proven and that they've admitted to, asking somebody to film some scenes and say, and a bunch of people to like just tell a lie for 40 years, that's not that bad.
Yeah.
They would definitely do that if they would do all the other things they've said they've done.
Yeah.
So I think just they probably didn't do it the first time, but I think eventually they did end up making it to the moon.
Yeah.
And I do think it's interesting, all the things in The Shining that, like, I don't know why Kubrick would have a guilty conscience and put all the Easter eggs in there to be like, some people say it's his apology.
No.
Yeah, maybe he's just like, it's just, but maybe it's, yeah, there is a lot in that documentary, and it's not just about the moon landing. I think it's a really good documentary. Room 237, but that's my favorite part, is all the moon landing document stuff. Was like Danny's wearing the Apollo 11 sweater, and Tang is prominently featured, which everybody knows astronauts drink, and I don't even remember all of the things, but they pieced together a pretty reasonable argument, I think. You don't believe, Dustin?
No, I just never cared enough.
Yeah, it like doesn't matter in the grand scheme of things. Like, who cares?
Yeah.
Let's see here. So I've been a fan of The Shining for a very long time, and it took a very long time for anyone to point out that Danny's wearing a shirt that has the Apollo 11 shuttle on it. I never noticed because I never cared.
And it fun, like when you watch the movie, like, oh, there's one of the Easter eggs.
No,
like,
not even a little bit to me, because I watched The Shining because I'm a fan of the story. I don't care about. Here's the thing, Liz. And Jake and I actually talked about this a little bit on one of the other shows that we were on a couple months ago or a month or so ago.
Oh, yeah, you're talking about when we were on We Love Horror.
Yeah,
and I said that I don't like The Shining.
Yeah, so Jake's not a fan
Stanley
of The
Kubrick's
Shining.
overrated.
So I'm not shocked that he would side with stuff that has nothing to do with the story at all. Because it gives him something to focus on. But also, like, I am only a fan of a couple of Kubrick's films. I actually don't think he was the genius that he's been built up to be. And even though I'm a huge fan of The Shining, I actually don't even think The Shining is his best work. Because there's definitely shots in that you're like, good God, we can move on to a different scene anytime now. No, I just never cared. And then when all of the conspiracy theory stuff came out about him hinting that it was like he filmed it and all that, I don't think if the general public could catch on to something like that, that the government would have let it continue.
Let him live.
That's not far off. Like,
Yeah.
if the public is smart enough to catch on, and let's face it, the public is not the brightest because we keep letting the big wigs do what they
Keep
want.
electing them. Yeah.
I feel like this is just something, if it was a real important conspiracy, the government would have stopped it.
Snuffed it out.
Very fast.
Yeah.
Like, and I also kind of feel
or come out like in the last 10 years and be like, hey, remember the 60s, all of you that were not alive for it? Yeah, we did that and we beat the Russians. And
right. So
look at us.
I just don't, to me, it just comes down to like, I don't care about the rabbit hole. I don't care about Kubrick all that much. I don't, it's like, to this day, with the amount of times that I have watched The Shining, I still couldn't tell you any of the other, like the Tang thing. I honestly don't remember Tang ever being a prominent thing showing up in The Shining. Like, I think you see a case of it once, or at least
it's in the storeroom, I think.
Yeah. So, and you also have to think about the times when it came out. It was like 1970, in the 70s. NASA was still kind of big back then. We haven't gone back to the moon because no one cares about going back to the moon. They have like no fun.
Been there, done that.
Right. Well, the public was like, cool. What else you got? Like, are we going to Mars yet? Are we going to, like, what else is in space? So we just send satellites and probes throughout space to be like, look, that's what we did. And then NASA's like, look, we crashed this thing on Mars and it's stuck there permanently. We'll never there goes trillions of dollars. So to me,
Yeah.
I'm like, we don't
Thanks
go
for your
back.
tax money.
Right.
Yeah.
We don't go back because we just can't afford to. They put all their eggs in the basket to beat the Russians, and it's bitten them in the ass ever since. So that's kind of where I leave it.
Okay. Well, I have a Shining theory that I know you will care about because it is not related to something outside the movie. It's related to the story, which you said it has to do. I watched a 40-minute video on YouTube from Rob Navarro, and it basically
Cool name.
outlines the Wendy theory. Have you heard of this?
Mm-mm.
The Wendy theory is that she is actually the main character and that she is mentally unstable. And throughout the movie, there are times, it assumes that the first walkthrough of the hotel is the baseline. And so any time that you see something out of place, if there used to be a light switch there and there's not, there used to be a light on the ceiling, a light fixture or whatever, and it's not anymore, that it's a different version, or she's hallucinating, or she's schizophrenic and having an imagined situation in that scene. And they happen to all be the scenes where something important or supernatural or Shining related happens, or where Jack is being abusive or what have you. And so the theory is that Wendy is schizophrenic. She is actually abusive of Danny, and when Danny's little Tony Shining thing is his coping mechanism with that abuse. The stories that she tells about Jack pulling his arm and breaking or popping out of the socket or whatever, it was all her, that she's done all of those things, and she's just telling lies or covering it up in her mind and blaming Jack for it and so on. Okay. And so there are a lot of continuity errors in The Shining, where there's this chair is there in one scene and it's not there in the next shot, the exact same shot, and it goes back and forth. And so there's different versions where sometimes if it happens and you're in a certain perspective, there's a lot of like behind the head shots of people as they like walk into rooms and stuff. And so there's a theory about like whenever that's happening, oftentimes she's either imagining it, or it could be a mixed reality, that he actually did go into the room, like with the radio, but he doesn't dismantle the radio. He actually calls for help. And that's why, what's his name? Scatman Crothers comes back, and so he's not coming back because he knows through Shining ability that he needs to come back. What he tells them is the actual reason, that they were an unreliable caretaker and he actually has to go back. And so that's basically the theory, that she is, you just have to watch the video if you care about The Shining, because he lays it out very, very directly and shows all the exact things that are missing and all the things and what it means and ties it all together. But I don't know if I'm impressionable or what, but watching the video, I was like, yeah, I believe it for sure. Because there's so many things and so many conversations that don't really make sense, that if Kubrick intended this change, which I assume is a huge change from the book, which you know a lot more from, he could have intended it, but it could also be that Kubrick is not the master everybody says, or that he's so rushed and nobody really cares about all these things because it's not really part of the story. So why bother keeping all the continuity the same? Because anyway, I mean, I'm sure he's had continuity errors in all of his movies, and
well,
I don't know
think
if it's at the
every
same
movie
scale.
has some kind of continuity error at some point.
Yeah,
so.
There's a lot in The Shining, and I don't know if it's at the
is.
same scale in general, but there's a lot, and people have documented it meticulously for some reason.
That theory fits for the movie.
Okay.
It does not fit for the book, which
sure
would make sense, because when Kubrick ventured out to make The Shining, he purposely changed like 90% of the story to fit his vision and what he felt was the proper way to tell the story. It's why Stephen King to this day is still like, The Shining is the worst adaptation of any of my stuff ever. He like publicly shamed and still hates Kubrick. The Shining refuses. Oh, he was so mad at it. And I as a fan of the movie, I get it because it's so different from the book.
Mm-hmm.
The book is very intense. It's very like there's some deep stuff in the book that the movie just kind of glosses over or completely ignores. Thank God for Jack Nicholson's performance. I actually think without Nicholson playing Jack Torrance, the movie would suffer greatly. But anyways, it makes sense for the movie. I totally think that's plausible that Wendy is unstable throughout the whole thing. I totally would agree with that. I would venture to say both her and Jack are equally unstable because he is a kind of abusive alcoholic, and she would just kind of, I could see Wendy exploiting that, or not taking
coping
with
it, or something.
like anti-coping with that kind of stuff. I buy that for the movie version. I'm actually for that one. That one makes sense.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
What do you think? Have you seen The Shining, Liz?
I have.
Okay.
I can see that for sure.
Yeah.
It makes a lot of it makes sense. A lot of like what's happening.
That's kind of like why I liked it, because it explains the movie with no supernatural things at all. Like you could
It's like a figment of her imagination, the whole thing.
Which makes it kind of scarier if it's all real in some more twisted way.
Okay. Yeah, I like that one, Jake. I actually do.
Okay.
Okay.
I was worried. I was like, he's gonna either hate this or probably gonna hate this.
No, it makes sense because Wendy is like, I mean, she is an emotional wreck. The movie is a 2.5 hour film, and she's an emotional wreck for 2 hours of it. Like she is rarely peaceful throughout that film. And she chain smokes like crazy. That's usually like a sign that, hey, there's some extra
Key
stress
indicator.
going on. Yeah.
Yeah. That piece,
And I do buy that one. I kind of want to rewatch it, but with like that perspective now. I think that'll make watching the movie more fun for me. And that's as a fan of the movie.
That's another interesting layer, a different layer.
Yeah, I still definitely wish someone would do a proper film adaptation, because the book, and like stay true to the book, because the book is incredible. I hated it the first time when I read it, but when I was a little older and angrier, I realized why I hated the book too much, or so much. It was because it was like, oh shit, this feels
real.
Too real.
Too scary.
Okay, and that's the brilliance of Stephen King. Anyways. All right, Jake. Well, that wasn't as bad of a rabbit hole as I thought.
No. I have one more that's my favorite. I mean, I have a lot more things.
All right. Well, Liz, what next one do you got for us? How are you going to follow up Wendy is unstable and abusive?
So I have like a cutesy one.
All right.
Okay. We need a cutesy one.
I'm a huge fan of Ratatouille. My husband and I, we love that movie. And I have like two like little fan theories that I've seen. One is actually from Court, my old co-host.
Okay.
And she recently was watching the movie and texted Hayden and I, and she was like, oh my gosh, like, what about this? And I was like, I have to talk about this on this podcast episode. But the idea is that Remy is actually Gusteau reincarnate. So that's why he knows how to cook so well.
Remind me who Gusteau is.
He's the owner of the restaurant that Remy ends up in.
Okay.
Yeah.
The big Italian guy.
Okay. So it's his restaurant that he would be cooking at.
Yeah. And it's interesting because Remy has flashbacks of Gusteau, because Gusteau had like a cooking show, I think. So I don't know if I like fully buy it, but it's very interesting, and it will make you think of things like in a different way, especially the fact that like Remy can like talk and interact with humans kind of in a way.
Right.
So that's number one. And then
he seems kind of like a savant, like he knows
like
how to cook
master
without really
chef,
any explanation. Yeah.
So the second
Okay.
theory leads into that. And the idea is, and this one's been debunked by the producers of the movie, which is sad.
What do
but-
they know?
yeah, forget them. The idea is that Remy grew up, his like mouse horde grew up in the house where Ego's mother lived. So Remy learned to cook from Ego's mother. And Ego is the food critic.
critic, right? Yeah.
Critic.
Yeah. And so he's this master chef because he learned from a master chef herself.
Oh.
And would explain why he liked the end product so much.
Yeah, why
because
it
was
like
just like his mom
triggers that
made.
childhood memory.
Exactly how his mom did it. Yep.
Okay.
That makes total
Oh,
sense.
I like that one. I think that one's
Yeah.
cool. And that would fit in the Pixar realm of connecting stuff.
Yeah.
Yes.
Because Pixar's come out and been like, our entire
Universe.
universe, it's all one universe. Everyone takes place in the same, like, what?
Yeah, all movies are connected at all times.
Uh-huh.
I
That's
like that
interesting.
one. I think that one's cute and very fitting for
Yeah,
the
I think
whole
that'll
universe.
I think that'll be my headcanon going forward.
Mhm.
That
Yeah.
has to be true.
It's
Yeah,
cute.
that's a good one.
And the proof there is that when Remy has flashbacks, because you see Ego's house in the flashback that Ego has when he's eating the ratatouille at the end.
Yeah.
But you also see like Remy's family running around in this house that looks identical to Ego's mother's
Okay.
home.
Okay.
And what
So I
the
have to keep an
producers
eye
have
out for
said
it.
is that they just reused animations that they'd already made, which is why it looks so similar. But I don't know if I buy it. I think they should have just
Yeah.
gone with it.
I think the
Like,
producers need to just keep their mouths shut on that one, because
Yeah,
that fan theory doesn't hurt. I think that actually adds.
it makes it better.
Yeah, I think that
Yeah.
adds a lot to that ending. I
Mhm.
like that one. Stupid
I do too.
producers.
Wholesome.
yeah. They just need to leave the art to the community that it belongs to after it's
Yeah,
released.
Yeah. Just be like, we
change
don't
that.
know.
I like that we say that for this one, but we've had a couple that for like, oh no.
Yeah, that's true. Okay, are you ready to get deep in my last big one?
Yeah.
I'm curious
So-
about this one, Jake.
This is the one where I watched a 15-minute video essay on YouTube from Rhino Stew. If you want to look up Rhino Stew on YouTube. Then a couple years later, that apparently got really big. I had never seen it until recently. It apparently got really big, and then a couple years later, he followed up with a 2-hour and 14-minute long part 2 that gets really deep into kind of the history of the source material it was based on. The
So
movie's
you're
based
more
on
than
and all
3
this stuff.
hours into this.
Yes, yes. It's safe to say that I completely believed at this point.
You're
And I'm going to
invested.
try to convince. I'm going to try to
Kool-Aid has
convince
been
you.
consumed.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. He drank the whole fucking jug.
It's
He was
the whole
like,
Coursing through my
the
veins.
rest
Not
of
left
you be
for
yes.
anybody
damned.
else.
This is mine.
Yeah. So it has to do with the two movies, Snowpiercer and Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory.
I know this theory.
I have heard this
oh
one
my
too.
god.
It's so good. It works. Okay, so it's two. There's different. The nice thing is that there's jumping off points. There's if you don't want to buy into the deepest level, you don't have to. You can just do the fun surface ride and then
Dude,
hop off
I'm
and
just
not
laughing
buy into the
that
deep
both
stuff.
Liz and I said we both heard this one with like the same kind of tone of like, oh dear God, he picked this one.
Yes,
All right.
it's really really good.
All right, Jake. Bring it on.
So the first level that you might want to believe is that the two movies are mirror images of each other. They're the same story, the same plot, the same premise, that there's a fantastical place that houses people that they all need to make a journey through this. So there's a group of people that need to make a journey through the structure, and in every room, one member of that group gets lost along the way. That structure is run by a person who is he's magnanimous. He uses the W symbol. There's Willy Wonka, obviously, and then what is the name? Well, Wilford Industries is the train company, and so they use that W, and they also, not only do they run, Willy Wonka is famous for creating fantastical modes of transportation between bicycles and boats and multi-directional elevators. It stands to reason that in the same vein or maybe even same universe, that a train that's completely self-contained and self-operating and self-sustaining would also work. So Willy Wonka is obviously famous for his food products, you may have heard. But the movie, if you haven't seen Snowpiercer, spoiler alert, the food that they eat is also a very prominent thing in the movie, that based on people primarily. And so using food creatively to sustain people, that's kind of a key thing that runs through the whole thing. So that's layer one, is that the movies are basically the same. They follow the same path. They follow the same, I guess, thesis, in that when Chris Evans gets to the end of Snowpiercer and he gets to the engine, he meets the conductor, and it's Ed Harris, and he basically explains that by making it to the end, I was looking for someone to take over for me, and it's the same basic kind of story. That is level 1. If you believe that, then I have a level 2 for you.
Bring it on.
I feel like you're telling us the levels regardless. So
level 2 is they're not just one inspired the other, or one was made in the other's shadow, or they're the same kind of story. The second level is that Snowpiercer is a sequel to Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory.
That's
and
the
that
one
Ed
I've
Harris's
heard.
character Ed Harris's character as the conductor of the train is Charlie Bucket, who became Willy Wonka's apprentice and then follows in his footsteps to go through the same process to find a successor that his predecessor Willy Wonka did with him. And that the reason that the train compartment is so small is because it was originally made by Oompa Loompas, but they have gone extinct, and so that's why they need children to run it now in this movie. And then he also goes down kind of at another level that he even says is insane, in that if Charlie is still alive and running the train, then maybe other characters from Willy Wonka are around. And so maybe the hitman guy is Mike TV, who is obsessed with violence and weapons and stuff. And maybe the crazy lady with big glasses, and maybe she is Veruca Salt. They both wear fur. They're both kind of different personalities, but she could have changed her personality to be faithful to Charlie for having rescued her from the incinerator. And then, I mean, I like it because it feels, I like Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, and I like Snowpiercer, and I like Bong Joon-ho, but I think that putting them together makes them kind of, it's like peanut butter and jelly, or peanut butter and something that you don't normally put peanut butter with bacon or something like that, where it's like, you should put them together, but if you do, it makes a really delicious, fun mind theory, I think.
I'll agree.
And there is a lot of little things, if I need to convince you more. In Willy Wonka, there's like a reference in school to like the recent unpleasantness, and that could be the British way of talking about, we're on the road to a post-apocalyptic future where everything is snow or whatever. So, I mean, things like that. I think it's fun.
I like it.
It's a reach, man. I will give you that. That is a reach there.
I'm not presenting it as well as old Rhino Stew did, but if you want to sink
so confident, and it just
if you want to sink a minimum of 15 minutes into it and a maximum of 2.5 hours into it, it's worth it, I think.
Okay.
It's not out of the realm of possibility. I can see it.
I think Liz is just placating to you. I don't see it at all.
Apparently, Chris Evans heard about this theory and he tweeted, but I think that tweet's been deleted. But he said, oh my God, wow, I really love this. So he might believe that it's true
Okay.
also.
Okay.
Well, if he believes
If you
it,
if you want to take Captain America's word for it,
Wow. Wow.
he would not lie to you.
then never.
He wouldn't, huh? He
No.
wouldn't. Yeah, Captain America doesn't lie.
Virtuous.
I don't know. Like, it's a reach. It's a big reach.
Mhm.
I think the first layer I'm more on board with, of them being
Mhm.
kind of mirror images of each other, just a darker version than the other.
Yeah. Much darker.
The conductor being Charlie, though, my initial reaction is the same that I had to Kevin McAllister being Jigsaw, where you're like, okay,
Yeah.
no, but sure. Like, you can have that if you need it, I suppose.
Mhm.
Mhm.
I don't hate the theory. I'm glad that
That's good.
Snowpiercer has a theory because it's such a cool fucking movie.
It is very
Yeah.
intriguing.
It's so good.
Yeah.
I do have another fan theory that I can like tack on to that goes
Oh,
along with
God.
Charlie
Okay.
and the Chocolate Factory that kind of makes that make more sense.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
I'm here for it.
So the theory is that in this, if you think about it this way, it does kind of change how you would see the movie and the different events that happen in the movie. And the theory is that giving the chocolate factory to Charlie is not a reward, but a punishment from Willy Wonka. And he's
He
pretty
doesn't
much
seem very happy
exiling
running it.
him into this life where he's going to be lonely. There's constantly, he's got to watch his back all the time. And he's going to have secrets.
Mhm.
And so that does add to the Snowpiercer thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think. See, the Willy Wonka theories, because there's a few, they're definitely entertaining. My personal favorite is the one everyone knows of Willy Wonka's actually a serial killer
Oh my God.
who like only targets children.
Children.
Yeah. I would say the serial killer theory lends more to the Snowpiercer connection, just with in Snowpiercer, you know, people have to die.
Yeah.
And the conductor is very much okay with that. That would be kind of something I feel like under a serial killer's mentoring. That would be something that Charlie would kind of eventually learn to be okay with and embrace.
Yeah.
So I think all of the Willy Wonka theories are definitely an interesting one, especially if you go with the Gene Wilder Willy Wonka, because that's usually the one that is like singled out of like, it's so fun, but really, really demented
dark.
and dark. And yeah. So I think if we go with yours, Liz, mixed with the serial killer, and then you tack on Snowpiercer,
put them all together.
I'm for that rabbit hole. All right.
Okay. We're just going many more levels deep.
We added
layer
some
upon
layers.
layer.
Yeah. So I didn't want to be a part of a rabbit hole, but I kind of like, you know what? No, we're doing it. So
We'll approve of it.
There we go. There we go.
Stamp of approval.
Yeah. All right. All right. Well, what
do you have more you want to do? Otherwise, I can rapid fire some fun ones.
You sound like you have a whole bunch. Just like
let's do it.
I do, but they're just like they're not deep. They're just like, oh, that's fun.
All right.
Yeah.
Let's rapid fire a couple. Ready?
Okay. Bird Box. What if the monsters are actually angels and the film is depicting the rapture?
Oh, I heard this one.
Yeah,
I did hear this one.
I think there's stuff in the Bible that's about like you can't look directly at an angel.
Yeah, it's like hearing the actual voice of God. It's like
terrifying
it would
and
destroy mankind. Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, and so that could be, and that's why people disappear constantly or their whole mindset kind of changes once they see them.
All right.
Okay, Mad Max. We talked about Furiosa, but what if, since all of the Mad Max movies are very similar, basically the same story, what if it is the same story being retold as a myth and it's getting growing over time, getting more elaborate, getting more as with new tellers,
Everybody
storytellers
adds
come
their
in,
little flair.
and
Yeah.
they
I
focus
heard
on
that
different things.
I am all on board for that one. I actually think
Yeah.
that it adds a ton to the Mad Max franchise if each one is like the next generation's retelling.
Yeah.
I think that's
It feels Mad Maxy, which is
Very.
like perfect. I think
It's very meta.
in universe. Yeah, exactly. The two movies, both are one's a remake of the other. Death at a Funeral. We
Yeah.
talked about foreign movies recently. This is a nonsensical one, but it's really fun. In both versions, the 2007 British version and the 2010 American version, with a black family's funeral, the Peter Dinklage plays the same character, which is he shows up at the funeral as the deceased father's gay lover. And the theory is that if that is the same character going to both funerals and he's a con man pulling this con on multiple families over and over, and it's just his grift. And I think that's kind of fun.
That one would make the remake kind of make sense. I've always been anti remake because I love that British version so much.
It's so bizarre. I mean, he even wears the same clothes,
it's like same
jacket.
everything. He's just a little bit older. Yeah.
Yeah. It seems very plausible to me. Everybody talks about how bad Batman and Robin is, but what if Batman and Robin is not a real Batman movie as we know them? We know Batman in movies. What if Batman and Robin is the representation in the movie universe of those characters? So if the citizens of Gotham City made a Batman movie, it would be like Batman and Robin.
I saw that one and was like, hey, that makes me not hate it as much. Okay, because the people of Gotham and that universe are pretty ridiculous. So that one is,
yeah, I think that makes perfect sense. And then you may have heard about this one in Signs. It's kind of a plot hole filling one. Why would aliens land on a planet full of water if they're allergic to water or deathly allergic to water? The theory, I guess there's kind of two parts to it. One is they're not aliens, they're actually demons. And they're not killed by all water, just the water in Graham's house, because he's a priest and he put them in glasses for his daughter. So there's some sort of love and blessing within that water, maybe inadvertent, but that water that she left out is the only water that would kill them because they're demons.
The demon theory is one that I've heard for a long time and would make sense for that story, that particular story, especially with Graham's story and his whole like kind of aversion to his faith. Yeah, the water theory I've never actually put much stock into, so I've never, or at least put that much thought into it being a plot hole.
There's also water in the air, so
I always just kind of chalked it up to them like when you see they're invading areas, it's always like landlocked. It's never like beach areas. So I don't know, but I like the demon theory.
I agree. Okay, two more. If there's several around James Bond, we won't talk about the obvious one that it's a code name because I think everybody agrees probably it's a code name. But I like the one where The Rock with Sean Connery is a sequel to James Bond, because after the events of Diamonds Are Forever, he gets imprisoned on Alcatraz, basically. And he references, or he gets imprisoned in 1962, and Dr. No was released in 1962. So it could basically be his last mission. And then he ends up on Alcatraz since then. And that's why he's kind of a famous Alcatraz. He's a famous spy, Scottish spy on Alcatraz. He's James Bond.
Yeah.
That's the whole thing.
Yeah. I like that theory. I've always thought that theory fit because you watch The Rock and the whole time you're like, this looks like an old man James Bond. He acts like him. He's all about the prom queen. He's all about, like, he is James Bond.
He's a winner. He's definitely a winner for sure.
Yes.
Yeah, I think at a minimum, the writers of The Rock chose that line that he was in prison in 1962 because of
I think they're
James
like,
Bond.
Sean Connery, we have to like have some Bond stuff, and now it's like, well, he basically you wrote a Bond movie.
Yeah, now it counts. And then the last one is the silliest one, which is Frodo does not know Legolas' name in Lord of the Rings.
It makes sense though when you read that. It makes so much sense.
At some point, he's just too embarrassed to ask,
which I get because
to do.
I'm one of those people. I will just figure like, oh, I'll learn their name eventually, and then too much time goes by, and I'm stuck with calling them, "Hey, you,"
until somebody else says
until someone uses their name, but no one ever uses their name, and you're like, shit. What's their name?
Yeah, I think the evidence on this one is airtight because not only does Frodo never say Legolas' name in the whole movie, but also in the last scene when they're in Rivendell and every character comes in, he yells their name out of joy, and then Legolas comes in and he just smiles awkwardly.
And then Gimli follows him and he's like, Gimli!
Yeah.
Yep.
It's perfect.
Frodo never learned his name. Never.
Poor Frodo.
That one is airtight. That I'm like, that's not a theory. That one's
real
fact right there.
Movie fact, yeah.
Yes. Yeah. All right. I'll only do a couple rapid fire for you, all right?
Okay. Sure.
Ferris in Ferris Bueller's Day Off is actually a figment of Cameron's imagination. He's like his version of Tyler Durden. Yeah, because he's so depressed and like down in the dumps, he envisions this character and this character's girlfriend, and everything that they force Cameron to do is something he normally wouldn't do, but he's letting his imagination kind of live out.
Yeah, it's kind of the person he wishes he could be.
Yeah.
Oh, I like that.
I'm gonna do let's see here. Oh, this one made me laugh because it made total sense to me all of a sudden. The shooting test in Men in Black, where where Jay makes up his whole bullshit about why he shot the little girl in the head. The test had nothing to do with your shooting skills, but it had everything to do with your bullshitting skills. Because to be a good agent, you have to lie. And be able to lie on the spot well.
Just make it up.
So that all the other guys stay silent. They don't say a single word to make any points. And he just never stops talking. I read that and was like, oh my God, that makes so much
That makes it make sense.
It just feels like that's exactly why he got the job.
Yeah. And then this one was actually my favorite that I came across in the movie Inception, which is one of my all-time favorites.
Yeah.
Hobbs' totem is not the top, it's his wedding ring.
Yep.
I read that one and was like, what? And when I actually dove into it, all the scenes where he's wearing the ring or not, I was like, this fits. And it makes even more sense. I feel like Nolan confirmed it because Nolan confirmed the ending of it being like real. Spoiler. But he does not have his ring at the end. It's just his wife's top. So he just keeps the top as kind of a memento of his wife.
Yeah. That one, I never noticed the ring like while I was watching it, but when I read that theory, it made me feel so much better because I was always bothered that the top was not his totem, it was Maul's totem, and he like used it instead, and that seemed like a weird thing. But then he always does things that he tells other people not to do.
Right.
But it does make perfect sense, and it also explains why he walks away from it after he spun it. It wasn't really, he didn't care. He had the ring, and he also saw his children's faces, which you couldn't do in a dream. But it's kind of more of a way of bringing Maul home, I think. That it was her totem that he just leaves there.
Yeah. And I think that was it for me. What about you, Liz?
I just
Got a
have
couple else?
one final little cute one.
Okay.
And, well, I guess kind of cute. I don't know. It's a Disney one. And it's a connection between Frozen and Tarzan.
You mean the one that was
Okay.
debunked?
The one where
We're
Elsa and
re-
Anna
we're-
are Tarzan's siblings.
We're rebunking it right now.
I thought it was wild. I was like, what in the world? Who even comes up with this?
Oh man, I remember when that came out because that wasn't the only one. It was like they were Tarzan's sisters,
Uh-huh.
but then they also connected it to like the Little Mermaid, or people were trying to
Yeah.
connect it to the Little Mermaid. And then I forget who made like the
Trying
actual.
too hard.
Yeah, the writers of Frozen came out and were like, no. Like, here's the map of the events, guys. There's no way this will work out.
No.
Even though the Tarzan one got debunked, it's fun, and I still argue
Yeah.
they should just stick with it. So
Yeah, just go
Yeah.
with it. It's interesting.
it doesn't hurt anything. It makes it
No.
fun.
Yeah.
I think the bigger thing people need to wonder about is how does Tarzan grow up completely hairless in the wild?
Yeah, some monkeys out there teaching him to shave. Not just his face, but his whole body.
Yeah,
Very
like
hairless.
sure, he's got some like smooth dreadlocks going on, which is questionable by itself, but come on, guys.
Okay.
I think that was all the ones. So, like, in general, how do you feel about the majority of fan theories? Like, obviously, we had fun talking about them. Do you think they actually help anything? Or do you think it's just something fun for people to do?
I'll let you answer first, Liz.
I think a little bit of both.
Okay.
I think some of
Yeah.
it's just people like being silly on the internet, like, what if? And then it gets like tumbled and you're like, oh, this was just like a silly thing I said. And all of a sudden, but then I think some of it you're kind of like, I don't know. This is intriguing. Like
Yeah.
expanding my knowledge of what could be going on.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the same thing. I think it's a fun way for people to engage with the things that they're all fans of together, and it goes back and forth, and some of them open up more plot holes than they try to fix, but it's always fun to consider it, and I think it kind of, you keep an open mind. It's fun to go into it that way.
Yeah, I'm definitely a fan of the ones that add to the story or the fun possibilities to it. I think the obvious ones of people just desperately filling in plot holes because they feel like they have to, like those seem to kind of hurt the story or at least be extra foolish. But for the most part, some of the theories are like you said, Liz, where you get caught up and you're like, oh, that one's I like that one. I mean, we brought up a couple today. So I think they're okay. I think people need to keep having fun with them because art's subjective, right? We're going to take
it's meant to be fun.
Yeah.
You know, don't take it too seriously.
It's true.
Right.
You know, maybe
Unless
don't
you've
make a 3-hour
gone down a
documentary about connecting polar opposite films.
Well, I will say, if anybody was super excited when I said that, I don't know that anybody is. But if anybody got super excited, don't get too excited, because most of it is spent going through the history of the original French comics and Bong Joon-ho's filmography, and very little is actually tied back to Willy Wonka in the long version.
And it comes out.
It comes out. Yeah.
Oh my god!
I didn't want anybody else to waste 2.5 hours. But the 15-minute version is fantastic. Highly recommend.
God. Okay.
Okay. Thank you, Liz,
Yeah,
for
thank
joining
you, Liz.
our
This was so
Thank you
mayhem.
for having me.
Yes.
I think a very worthy first guest, and a hard act to follow for whoever comes next.
It's true.
Oh,
It's
thank
true.
you.
Yeah, this was a
very
lot of fun. I think we both knew like we were going to have a good time and laugh a lot, but I think we laughed probably a little bit more than we anticipated. So thank you, Liz.
Oh,
Yeah,
thank you guys.
Came very prepared. You understood the assignment for
It's
sure.
true. It's true.
Next episode, we are deep diving into the original Joker. I say the original. This is the only version right now. But
The only
but the new
Joker.
one's coming out, so we thought might as well pick it apart because I think it is a very good and deep movie and also pretty controversial.
Mhm.
Some people hate it, some people disown it, and some people really like it. And so I think we'll explore it and focus on that with the new one coming out.
Yeah. Make sure you follow us on all the social media stuff. Check out Liz. Liz, throw in your tags and all that.
Yes, please promote yourself.
It's at Liz in a Movie on everything except for TikTok because they banned me, but I'm not salty about it.
Fuck
Moving on
TikTok,
with
man.
my life.
Yeah, I would join you in that sentiment, but I'm in a battle with Instagram right now.
It's true.
They're very mad at us for posting pictures of marijuana and guns and from movies.
From a movie,
props.
like they
Yeah.
are movie stills. And
But
Totally.
we cannot reach anybody that's not following us.
Yeah,
And,
TikTok was like, "Screw you, we don't care." And I was like,
yours
okay.
cracked me up, Liz, because like all of your stuff is just fun little movie facts. Like, ooh, I went and saw
It's like
this
my
today.
face
Like
and my voice.
right? And they're like, can't have this.
Inauthentic.
no, get out of here.
I told my daughter about your band and our like Instagram jail, and my 14-year-old just started laughing. It's just like, wow, they're really dumb. And it's like,
insane.
yes, yes, they are.
Yeah.
Yeah, I blame the machines. I don't think
Yeah.
anybody is actually looking at it.
No.
I think it's all
They don't
bots.
double check.
It's true.
No.
Stupid bots. See, you can't
yeah.
trust this stuff, man.
Mm-mm.
Follow Liz, support her stuff. Follow us if you ever want to see anything else again, because it's not getting out of jail. We're not getting out of jail. We don't pass go. I don't know what we're doing. And sign up for the fan club because it's going to help us grow. It's going to help us get better cameras and lights and do stuff we've always wanted to do. Get more creative and do cool stuff. So we appreciate you listening and supporting us so far. All right. Until next time.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye.